Greetings, my fellow Americans. This is your future President Samuel Ronan speaking, and today is Recap Thursday. Yes, folks, we made it through one whole week of streams without seeing the world collapse into World War III. So we're still good on that. We are still counting. We are still alive. We still have room to resist. That being said, the news that has been happening in just the past couple of days is still pretty bleak. Pam Bondi basically got grilled for 5 hours by Congress and lied the entire time. ICE is still terrorizing people in Minneapolis and across the country. And interestingly enough, now, after over a year of fascism in America, or at least more overt fascism in America, calls for impeachment seem to finally be making their way forward in the main congressional talking points. Bam. So there is definitely a lot to cover today, and we will get through it just in time for the weekend. Hello, Anna. Hello, everybody. Thanks for joining. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Share with your friends and family and neighbors. Share the link in Facebook and so on and so forth so we can get this party started and keep it going. So without further ado, this is Democracy Now! With Amy Goodman, democracynow.org, the War and Peace Report.
Welcome to Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, the War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman. On Capitol Hill, Democratic lawmakers grilled Attorney General Pam Bondi on the Justice Department handling of the Epstein files. Democratic Congressmember Pramila Jayapal asked survivors who are sitting in the audience to stand up before she challenged Bondi to apologize to them for the Justice Department failure to fully redact their names in the Epstein files. Bondi declined. Throughout the hearing, she insulted Democrats on the House Judiciary Committee and heaped praise on President Trump as she repeatedly dodged accusations she's perpetuating a cover-up and ignoring the victims. This is part of an exchange between Bondi and New York Democratic Congressmember Jerry Nadler.
So I really have just one question for you. How many of Epstein's co-conspirators have you indicted? How many perpetrators are you even investigating?
First, you showed it. I find it.
How many have you indicted?
Excuse me. I'm going to answer the question.
Answer my question.
No, I'm going to answer the question the way I want to answer the question.
No, you're going to answer the question the way I asked it.
Chairman.
So, evidently, the top leadership in the United States federal government, when questioned or when doing the questioning, devolve into children, like literal kindergarten children. So are you going to prosecute people? Well, I'm not going to answer that question the way you want me to. She didn't even begin answering the question and he already started interrupting her like a fucking child. But sure, let's continue.
Jordan, I'm not going to get in the gutter with these people, but I'm going to answer the question.
How many?
A Reuters photographer at the hearing captured images of Attorney General Bondi with a printout of Congressmember Jayapal's history of searches of the Justice Department's database of the Epstein files, which was just open to Congress members to review.
So, it's very telling that Pam Bondi is being grilled by Congress for not prosecuting anybody from the Epstein list. And the way she's responding to that hearing is by trying to figure out what the Congress people were looking for and attempting to hold that against them, which is is insane.
Member Jayapal blasted Bondi on social media, writing, quote, "It's totally inappropriate and against the separations of powers for the DOJ to surveil us as we search the Epstein files. Bondi showed up today with a burn book that held a printed search history of exactly what emails I searched. That is outrageous, and I intend to pursue this and stop this spying on members," unquote. We'll speak with Congressmember Jayapal later in the broadcast, as well as Vermont Congressmember Becca Balint. She walked out of the hearing after Bondi accused her of being anti-Semitic. Congressmember
Right, because that's all these sycophants have is deny, distract, and then accuse them of anti-Semitism, which is absolutely insane, right? How is it anti-Semitic to be outraged that Epstein, a Mossad spy, an Israeli spy, was literally the ringleader of possibly every single major world tragedy in the past 30 years, as well as a child sex trafficking ring that incorporated the most powerful and wealthy individuals on planet Earth? Like, that's not anti-Semitic. That is literally pointing out what is the truth.
Alan's grandfather died in the Holocaust. President Trump held a private meeting at the White House for nearly 3 hours on Wednesday with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu.
Yeah, and then in the same news breath, right, Pam Bondi accusing others of being anti-Semitic and not prosecuting actual criminals and so on and so forth. Trump, himself a major criminal and implicated heavily throughout the Epstein files, meets with Netanyahu, an avowed, an actual charged by the ICC, the United Nations International Criminal Courts, as a war criminal and criminal against humanity, with an actual outstanding warrant for his arrest, is just casually meeting together in the White House.
After the discussions, Trump said nothing definitive had been decided. His visit came just days after U.S. and Iranian officials held indirect talks in Oman amidst Trump's persistent threats to once again bomb Iran. It was Netanyahu's sixth trip to the United States since Trump retook the White House just over a year ago. We'll have more.
And honestly, the fact that Netanyahu is visiting America that often, as opposed to any other presidency, to include Trump's first presidency, I think. Did Netanyahu visit Trump in his first term as often? Yeah, I really don't know how to spell his name. So March 28th, or I'm sorry, March 5th, 2018, Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu to visit Trump for the fifth time. So Netanyahu actually did visit Trump quite a few times in the first term as well, which is notable because world leaders don't meet the President of the United States very often, just on their home turf, and certainly not 5 times. Maybe a world leader would come to America for major peace talks, a treaty, a trade agreement, or hosting the G20 or something like that, right? But to just visit out of the blue is unheard of. And Netanyahu did it 5 times in the first term, and did it 5 times in just the first year of the second term. If that's not something that should raise alarm bells and questions, then people are literally living with their head in the sand.
More on Netanyahu's visit after headlines with Middle East analyst Mouin Rabbani. We'll talk about Iran, about Israel, about the occupied territories. Israeli President Isaac Herzog has wrapped up a 4-day visit to Australia, where he was met by widespread protests. Thousands of demonstrators gathered in Melbourne today, following protest marches in the capital Canberra and Sydney. Protester Greg Hunt said Herzog was the wrong person to provide comfort to Australia's Jewish community after a pair of gunmen opened fire on Hanukkah celebration last December, killing 15 people.
Well, considering Herzog is literally aiding and abetting Netanyahu's genocide against Palestinians, and of course the Epstein's files being released and the ties to Israel, there are probably better people to visit the state.
I understand the idea of giving comfort to an Israeli people after the atrocity that they suffered at Bondi, but that doesn't excuse an invitation to someone who, as I've got on the sign here, a sign of bomb to drop on Gazans. And that's just beyond the pale, and Albo should have known better. He really should have.
In Pennsylvania, masked federal agents forced their way into a home in Eagleville on Monday, terrorizing a family sleeping inside that included 2 children aged 8 and 13. Lupe Lopez, who lives at the home, recorded video as the agents battered down her door. The video shows Lopez was held at gunpoint as the masked agents search for her 26-year-old cousin, a Mexican national with an expired visa. Lopez appealed to the agents to leave her home.
I don't know how anybody can watch that right there and be on the side of the guys holding the guns and the flashlights. Because this is their new tactic, for one, but for two, they're just breaking down doors without a warrant, mind you, without identifying themselves, unless it's after the fact, and then terrorizing people at gunpoint. Like, that's, even if it was a bona fide law enforcement activity, you do not use and threaten to use lethal force when executing a warrant. That's just not how that works. If a cop came to your house with a warrant and then immediately pulled their gun on you, they would be in the wrong and you'd have grounds to sue them. Hell, in Ohio, you'd have grounds to use self-defense because the search warrant doesn't justify holding you at gunpoint. The search warrant itself gives them permission to be there. They don't need to terrorize you in the process. And the fact that they are masked, and the fact that they are now affixing flashlights to their weapons, and so that when you record them, it's harder to see their faces, because that's why they're doing it. The brightness from the camera interferes with the lens like this, so it gets and interferes with the image of the face. So again, all these people are doing is trying to hide their identities while committing atrocities, and they know they're committing atrocities. They know they're committing acts of terror against people. And this is in Pennsylvania, right? I believe Pennsylvania is another state that is stand your ground. It is. So, I mean, quite frankly, you know, they're going to fuck around one too many times in the state of Pennsylvania and end up getting shot. Again, it is your right to defend yourself, especially if it's in your home. And if it's an apartment, chances are there is no other room of egress anyway. So if they break down through your door and they claim, hey, open up, we're searching for somebody, open up, and you're like, well, who are you? Show me a warrant. And they say no. How do you even know that they're actually law enforcement? Because again, there have been repeated incidents of people masquerading as ICE agents, masked and everything, and then robbing people or SAing people. So I really cannot emphasize enough that what we are watching right now is domestic terrorism in action. And that's the only thing that can be said about this.
Why do you do this? Why do you break families apart? Why? You don't have kids? You don't have a family? Why do you do this? Do you think this is okay? I know you feel something.
In Minnesota, St. Paul Mayor Kali Herr has renewed her call for an end to Operation Metro Surge and for over 2,000 federal agents to leave the Twin Cities after a car crash involving federal agents Wednesday sent one person to the hospital and damaged several vehicles. Meanwhile, human rights lawyers who visited the Whipple Federal Building in Minneapolis said immigrants jailed there are continuing to be denied access to legal counsel. In court declarations filed Wednesday, the lawyers said people arrested by ICE were provided with the wrong phone numbers for legal services and that ICE agents gave no privacy to people calling lawyers in violation of attorney-client privilege. Here in New York, ICE acknowledged and
I mean, Every single story that involves ICE, they are committing crimes, they are terrorizing people, and they are violating people's rights. I mean, at what point do we say enough is enough as a country? I really would like to know, because it was enough the first time they tried doing this shit in California, February of last year. Or, I mean, whenever they started, which was, I guess, maybe May. I don't know. But the point is, right, the second I stepped out of line and started terrorizing communities should have been the red line, the crossing of the Rubicon, the do not exceed this limit for Americans. And yet that should have been the equivalent of the Boston Massacre. And it wasn't. And it continues not to be. These people have literally murdered American citizens in the street, have murdered immigrants in broad daylight, have for-profit concentration camps, which is far and above more egregious than the Boston Massacre, the events that led to the Boston Tea Party, or any of the atrocities committed by England against the original 13 colonies. We fought a revolution over less. And now, in modern times, we just bury our heads in the sand and pretend it's not happening? Like, when will we grow a spine as a country and put an end to this terrorism?
In federal court this week that it's been jailing immigrants on a second previously undisclosed floor at 26 Federal Plaza in Manhattan. The disclosure came after a judge last summer ordered the Trump administration to address squalid, unsanitary conditions and prolonged confinement in overcrowded rooms at 26 Federal Plaza, not designed for overnight stays.
Well, and people are being forced to sleep on concrete without literally any sort of mat or anything. And those aluminum blankets, like what is that going to do? And I mean, look at that room. That room is not designed to house people overnight in any sense of the word. And you have dozens of people, literally dozens, multiple dozens of people in that room alone with no privacy, no separation, no access to sanitation or other utilities, and no actual means of lying down with anything resembling comfort. Like jail cells, general population dorms in jail cells are better equipped than this location right here. We literally treat prisoners better than we are treating immigrants, which is why we don't call these detention centers, we call them concentration camps. Because that is exactly, definitively what they are.
Days. New body cam footage and emails have been released, revealing new details about how a federal immigration agent shot U.S. citizen Marimar Martinez 5 times in Chicago last October. The footage shows Border Patrol agents in their vehicle with weapons drawn and fingers on the triggers, as Martinez can be heard honking her car's horn in the background to alert neighbors about the presence of federal agents.
Something. All right, it's time to get aggressive and get the out.
Shortly after the incident.
And literally talking about how we're going to get aggressive and then leave. Literally trying to literally engaging in escalation, not even attempting to de-escalate, on camera, recorded, escalating the situation.
Incident. Gregory Bovino, who was leading the Trump administration's mass deportation campaign at the time, emailed the agent, quote, "In light of your excellent service in Chicago, you have much yet left to do," exclamation point twice. Martinez's attorneys said Wednesday they'll seek tens of millions of dollars in damages under the Federal Tort Claims Act.
As well they should. And quite frankly, they should start a class action that cities and governments can join in on for acts of terror, of surviving invasion, of this, that, and the other. Because if this is the only way to fight back, or the only way that people seem to care about fighting back against ICE, not organizing, not protesting, not, shutting down local state governments and stuff like that, then okay, let's sue the shit out of the agency, because them running rampant is unacceptable. It's just unacceptable.
The Federal Aviation Administration, the FAA, abruptly closed the airspace around El Paso, Texas late Tuesday and reopened it hours later after Customs and Border Protection officials reportedly fired an anti-drone laser shared by the Pentagon without providing FAA officials enough time to manage the risks to commercial flights. According to the New York Times, immigration officials thought they were targeting a drug cartel drone, but it turned out to be a party balloon. Democratic.
So, in the same token, then, they thought they were fighting a cartel drone, which turned out to be a party balloon, and yet we're supposed to fucking believe the military and this administration when they say that they're blowing up cartel boats in the Caribbean? Are you fucking high? Do they think we're that stupid? Granted, we know based on the fact that they refused to, they don't even claim that there was evidence, that there was even any sort of investigation conducted, that there was any surveillance or anything corroborating that they were anything other than fishermen, right? But we're expected to believe that all of these activities are for our safety and against drugs and against cartels. If they can't even determine that a party balloon is a drone or not, then what the fuck do we think they're doing to actually keep us safe? They can't even like their systems, their video systems are so low fidelity. That are so like garbage that they can only pick out that what looks like a pixel that's floating in midair. Also, if it was a drone as opposed to a balloon, wouldn't it hover in place versus slowly ascending? Or be moving side to side if it was a drone, or be moving in a forward direction instead of slowly floating up? Like, just honest to God deductive reasoning would have shown that that's not a drone. And if the cartels are sophisticated enough to just pretend that their drones are balloons on occasion, that would still require them to know that they are actively being watched at the moment that they choose to pretend to be a balloon. Because otherwise, they'd be tracking the entire movement. So we have the most incompetent people in charge of keeping our nation safe, or even investigating the activities of criminal organizations, and they are trigger happy, violent sociopaths. So incompetent and violent. That is the worst combination we could hope for. Like, that is the worst combination of behavior and intelligence that you want in anything resembling safety, peacekeeping, or the military. And that seems to be exclusively what we got at this time.
Senator Jack Reed, who sits on the Armed Services Committee, said, quote, "The conflicting accounts coming from different parts of the federal government only deepen public concern and raise serious questions about coordination and decision-making," unquote. The House of Representatives has approved a bill that seeks to repeal President Trump's declaration of a national emergency to impose punitive tariffs on Canada. 6 Republicans joined nearly all Democrats in supporting the resolution, which appears to have enough support to pass the Senate. President Trump signaled he's prepared to veto the bill and plans to punish defectors. Trump wrote on social media, quote, "Any Republican in the House or the Senate that votes against tariffs will seriously suffer the consequences come election time, and that includes primaries."
All right. Here's a question. Was Mike Carey one of the defectors? Because how fucking hilarious would it be if the one time he grew a conscience was the one time it ends up backfiring him on the primaries and then ends up getting me elected, somebody who was going to be diametrically opposed to everything Trump does? That would be hilarious. Okay. let's see. Did Mike Carey vote against tariffs for Canada? Oh, that would have been funny. So apparently Mike Carey is a Trumper, which is still something that could bite him in the ass given that MAGA support is dwindling rapidly.
Trump wrote. President Trump accepted the Washington...
Oh, and by the way, threatening members of Congress with consequences and retaliation, i.e. the executive branch threatening the legislative branch, gross violation of the office, gross violation of the Constitution, criminal activity, cognitive decline, grounds for impeachment, grounds for invoking the 25th. I mean, seriously, can we get with the program? Like, what the fuck?
Coal Club's inaugural award on Wednesday, declaring him the, quote, undisputed champion of beautiful, clean coal, unquote. Trump accepted the award, a statue of a coal miner, from Peabody Energy president and CEO Jim Gretsch during a White House event where Trump announced he directed the Pentagon.
And how much did Jim Gretsch pay Trump, right? Whether in direct bribes or indirect bribes via the ballroom or donations or whatever else, for Trump to support the coal industry.
To purchase electricity from coal-fired plants, and said he'd asked the Energy Department to provide $175 million in federal funds for upgrades at several U.S. coal plants.
This is dumb. We don't even rely on coal as a primary energy source. Coal. 16%. Okay, so that's not nothing. I'll give you that. I will give you that. But we were increasing our usage of renewables drastically and limiting our reliance on coal drastically. And now, because of this administration, we're rewinding that all the way back. That's absolutely stupid. So, you know what? Okay, fine. We still do use coal quite a bit, and therefore there is reasons to keep sort of, I guess, investing in it. But the idea should be incentivizing the coal industry to transition into literally anything else and maintaining the workforce and the infrastructure, but away from coal. Just using coal while investing in whatever else and incentivize it for all I care. But whatever, I guess.
I've saved 74 coal power plants from crushing restrictions and closures that would have been forced to shut down in the very immediate future. And today I'm proud to announce that the Tennessee Valley Authority is taking action to save 2 major coal plants in Tennessee. Tennessee Valley Authority.
In response, the Natural Resources Defense Council wrote, quote, while Americans are demanding clean, affordable energy, the Trump administration's using our tax dollars to prop up the nation's dirtiest, least efficient power plants. It's no wonder fossil fuel lobbyists are handing Trump an award to...
And that's the point, right? Like, fossil fuel is becoming significantly less efficient compared to the clean energy alternatives. And in many regards, coal is the least efficient, right? Compared to solar. And compared to wind, which I think wind is the least... No, maybe solar is currently the least efficient. Okay. Geothermal. Okay, well, we're not using geothermal anyway. Wind is the most efficient. Okay. So it's solar that's less efficient. So that's my point. Like, solar is more efficient than coal. And we instead of investing in solar, we're going to reinvest in coal, which is not as efficient as the other fossil fuels, but is also significantly dirtier. So we're polluting ourselves while still being less efficient than solar panels. It's literally shooting ourselves in the foot twice so that coal conglomerates can continue to stay in business with complete disregard for anything else. Like, again, incentivize coal to transition into a different industry. That's all we're asking.
Day, unquote. The Consumer Financial Protection Bureau has fired program manager Alexis Goldstein for documenting a meeting last year between the agency and Elon Musk's Department of Government Efficiency, or DOGE. That's according to emails obtained by Bloomberg News. In a statement to Bloomberg, Goldstein said, quote, "CFPB is illegally retaliating against me for trying to do my job. I acted to protect the sensitive data of Americans and the trade secrets of some of the nation's largest banks and financial institutions from being accessed by individuals from DOGE without CFPB credentials and required training."
And, I mean, that's just par for the course, isn't it? This administration will literally fire or intimidate or destroy the lives or careers of anyone who gets in their way. And the latest victim of that is Alexis Goldstein, which, I mean, I'm surprised the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau is still in effect, given how much it was gutted last year. I mean, the protections, the financial protections that protected consumers were all but thrown out. So the fact that she still had a job at all was rather impressive. Why are they going after her now? That's the next question, right?
Quote. To see our past interviews with Alexis Goldstein, go to democracynow.org. And Argentina's Senate has approved a sweeping new labor bill pushed by far-right President Javier Milei. The bill would curb the right to strike, allow companies to more easily fire people, and curtail severance payments.
So, Argentina just passed legislation that would give corporations unparalleled power and gut what little power and protections workers had to the bare bones, none, because how are you going to legislate that people can no longer strike and make it easier for corporations to fire people? Like, that right there is fascism. That is literally the merger of the corporation and the state. You are literally giving corporations unprecedented power to subjugate the workforce. I don't even understand. And that's probably why the Argentinians, as we can see, are protesting or potentially rioting. I don't know if that's considered peaceful or not for Argentina.
It comes as thousands of workers mobilized by trade unions gathered in central Buenos Aires, clashing with police on Wednesday. This is Mario Manrique with the Auto Industry Workers Union.
What's being presented as labor modernization is exactly the opposite. This labor reform that the government is proposing is a compilation of all the reforms they've tried to pass in Argentina. And the only thing they're looking for is Argentina to become a cheap labor hub in the world.
Which wouldn't help Argentinian economy anyway. Forcing people to work for less while producing cheap goods is not how you prop up an economy. That's not how you improve prosperity either. That is literally how you enslave an entire population for a larger state, right? Argentina is creating themselves as a vassal state for some future imperial force, presumably America. They are capitulating to America before America even forced the issue. Like, how are you going to bend the knee and lick boots before the troops even come marching? That's pathetic. And quite frankly,
it's unfortunate.
I think we're going to see greater civil unrest in Argentina and potentially the overthrow of the Milei government.
It happens in other regions.
And those are some of the headlines.
Those were some very bleak headlines, I'm not going to lie. Those were some extremely bleak headlines. ICE running rampant in 3 different areas of the country. Pam Bondi just ignoring the law. And then, of course, what's happening in the world is no less of an improvement. So let's try something more happy, like impeaching the president.
This is Democracy Now! Congressman Al Green, I also want to ask you about your ongoing efforts to impeach.
Every time I click on a new video, am I supposed to say, this is Samuel Ronan, the Samuel Ronan channel? Samuel Ronan is running for Congress. Like, share, and subscribe. And now the video.
President Trump. This is part of what you said Saturday after President Trump refused to apologize for posting a racist video depicting President and Michelle Obama as apes.
Mr. President, this is one more reason why, when I go back to Congress, I'm going to bring another set of articles of impeachment against you for your racist attitude that you exhibit against people of color in this country.
This all comes in the middle of the 100th anniversary of Black History Month. The Trump administration has made systematic efforts to erase Black history since President Trump's executive order last March.
Which is absolutely true. Starting with the military and ordering the military to remove pretty much any Black person or person of color's contributions to their branch, going back even through to the Civil War and prior. The complete erasure, including women, including trans service members as well. And then, of course, doing the same thing for other departments and agencies. And has not been subtle about it. And then, of course, it's the 100th anniversary of Black History Month, and opened it up by making a racist, or posting a racist video of our only Black president. Now, there's many things to ridicule Obama about, but his race is not one of them. And the fact that it's never been about his actual legacy and literally just the color of his skin, and the fact that this is over 10 years ago, right? Like, the Obama administration is so far buried in the past at this point that it's almost irrelevant, because that is how far we have fallen as a country in just a decade. We have regressed so I don't even have the words to describe how far we have fallen as a country, that the Obama administration and the war on terror are almost footnotes compared to the erosion of democracy that we are witnessing today. But on top of the erosion of democracy, reinforcing that regression with blatant overt racism, transphobia, and xenophobia, it just makes it that much more worse. So,
March titled Restoring Truth and Sanity to American History. Across the country, several public markers and monuments highlighting the lives of enslaved people or honoring the memory of Black Americans killed in racist attacks are being changed, with any references the Trump administration considers disparaging to American history being removed. In Philadelphia, the National Park...
I mean, look at this video. Cops just beating the shit out of a Black person for existing. That's American history. It's not disparaging. That is honest-to-God recorded history. That video of ICE agents breaking into an apartment and pointing guns at children and that poor woman in her apartment. That's going to be American history. It is American history, being written in the present. We have been a violent and vile country for many generations. And pretending otherwise doesn't change that fact.
Park Service has dismantled a slavery exhibit that highlighted President George Washington's treatment of his enslaved workers. At Medgar and Myrlie Evers' home, a national monument in Mississippi, references to Medgar Evers' killer as racist have been removed. The Trump administration's also returned Confederate names to U.S. military bases, restored Confederate statues, cut federal funding to the Whitney Plantation in Louisiana, which educates Americans about the history of slavery, and purged the names of thousands of non-white figures in American history from federal websites.
I mean, it's literally the exact opposite of what we should be doing. On top of that, this is literally the wet dream of the Confederacy coming to life. The South will rise again, and apparently it came from a New Yorker. Ironically, a northern state that fought in the Union against the Confederacy. This racist piece of shit is the one to restore the South's greatness. And it's insane because, well, when I'm president, I'm going to just remove it all again, all of the Confederate monuments, names, and so on and so forth, and then criminally prosecute everyone who was participating in that, right? And then restoring everybody's names, of course. So I don't understand why we want to celebrate the worst elements of our nation's history and venerate the worst people in our nation's history while erasing some of the greatest contributors to our nation's history. I just don't understand how that makes anything great and doesn't just highlight the fact that we are being ran by white supremacists who also happen to be pedophiles. My 2 cents.
Also has stopped giving free entrance to national parks on Martin Luther King's holiday and the federal holiday that is Juneteenth. Still with us is Congressmember Al Green. If you can respond to all of this, but start with President Trump's refusal to apologize for posting this image of the Obamas as apes. I think they kept up the post for about 12 hours, but then when asked to apologize, even after taking it down, he refused.
The president is incapable of apologizing. This is why I would just have him tell the truth, that what he did was racist and what he did demeans people of color. But it's not the first time that he's done this. The president, if you recall, with the people who are of the Nation of Islam or people who are from places where there are Islamic countries, he decided that he wouldn't allow them into the country. The president has said that people from South Africa are experiencing genocide and Anglos can come in, but the South Africans who are of African ancestry cannot. In Texas, there is a movement afoot to call slavery involuntary relocation. What you said is all eminently a part of the reason why we must have articles of impeachment against this president for infusing racism into policy. And that's what he's doing. You might recall some time ago when he was talking about African countries, he called them S-hole countries. And we are now trying as best as we can to prevent people of color from coming into the country. We have to allow him to be himself so that we can then identify him. I'm not going to stop him from being himself. I want to get him out of office. You can't stop him from being himself because he is out of control. He has a histrionic personality disorder. He has to be the center of attention to the extent that even if it hurts someone else, he must be the center of attention. He goes to extreme measures to eliminate DEI, a plane and a helicopter crash. Before there was any scintilla of an investigation, the president concluded that it was DEI that caused it. Well, that was a shot at Black people, people of color. DEI is no longer allowed as a means of simply having people in the room so that they may be examined for purposes of possibly getting a job. It doesn't guarantee a person a job. All it does is say you can have a person of a different hue in the room and give that person some consideration. This president is doing all that he can to condition us to accept racism, to accept bigotry. There was a young man who was associated with Doge who said some horrible things about Jewish people. He's an anti-Semite. He left the job and the vice president insisted that he be brought back. The president then confirmed that what the vice president did was appropriate. We can't allow this to continue. Yes, I'm going to bring articles of impeachment against him for infusing his hate into policy. I believe that it's appropriate to do. I hope that my colleagues will support it. But if they do not, I know that posterity is going to remember those of us who took a stand. And sometimes it's better to stand alone than not stand at all.
So normally I would interrupt when people are talking and then say something about the points they were making. But quite frankly, I mean, he was on a roll and he was bringing up pretty much the highlight reel of Trump's racism and bigotry for over the past year. And he's absolutely right. Among all the things that Trump has done that are impeachable offenses, racism, which is a blatant violation of the 14th Amendment, is one of them. Is quite literally one of them, because it violates the Constitution. Again, the 14th Amendment guarantees protections to people of color and of every demographic to be treated equally under the law. It was great. It was technically already implied in the 4th Amendment, but it had to be reaffirmed in the 14th after the end of slavery, right? Because, well, it didn't apply to slaves back then, right? So the point being here is that of all the criminal activity that he has conducted and all of the horrible things that Trump is doing, violating the 14th Amendment is 100% impeachable. It violates the oath. It threatens the safety and security of the nation. It endangers the very people he is disparaging, right? Which is, again, affecting the safety and security of the nation and the good order of our society. He is singularly, not only, but singularly responsible for facilitating crimes against black and brown people, encouraging violence against them, encouraging hiring practices to discriminate against them, while using his own secret police force to target them. So yes, it is 100% an impeachable offense. He should 100% do it. The problem is there are way too many cowards in Congress that aren't going to follow through. And even if by some miracle it passes the House, it's never going to pass the Senate. Because, again, too many cowards, complicit individuals are in both chambers of Congress. And that is what makes all of this that much more worse. Trump is acting with impunity because he has complicit branches of government aiding and abetting his criminal activities, which means everybody should be getting charged and prosecuted for conspiracy. Not just Trump, not just Republicans, not just the administration. Everybody. And yes, that would also include Al Green for voting to allow the cabinet member picks, the voting for whatever bills that enabled ICE in the first place, and any of the other MAGA mandate legislation that he didn't vote against. Because I know he voted for at least some of them. And we all know that all Democrats and Republicans voted to give Israel weapons and more weapons and more weapons to use against Palestine to further their genocide. So it's not like Al Green is a paragon of righteousness and has never done anything not to be scrutinized. But at the end of the day, if we want impeachment to work, we need better people in office. We need people in office who are not already sullied by this administration and by the existing Congress or previous Congresses, those who were in Congress. And the only way that happens is if we primary them all. We primary them as Democrats, we primary them as Republicans. Every single congressman, every single senator that is up for election must be primaried and must be defeated if we want to remove this administration from power and then hold them criminally accountable. But if we only get a few victories, my race and maybe couple dozen more in Congress and maybe 3 or 4 senators, it's a good start, but it's not going to be enough to curb the corruption. So, yes, he is correct. Yes, he needs to, the impeachment articles should move forward. But the problem is also one that he is a part of.
I want to ask you 2 questions.
Well, actually, I think that pretty much covers that. This is a 12-minute video, and We have 52 today, so I should probably...
The survivors of Jeffrey Epstein's abuse say all they want is transparency and accountability. Their fear is that isn't happening, despite the release by the US Justice Department of millions of files relating to the convicted sex offender. The US Attorney General Pam Bondi, in a tense and combative hearing before US lawmakers on Capitol Hill, defended her handling of the files as Democrats accused her of engaging in a cover-up by redacting.
I mean, is it an accusation if she deliberately went against the law that was passed by Congress stating that victims shall be redacted and the perpetrators shall not? I mean, by that very simple definition, it is a cover-up. It's not an alleged thing. You are covering it up by violating the legislation that was passed.
The names of several men from the documents that have been made public. All this comes as one abuse survivor has told the BBC that the royal family's response has been too little too late, and she wants King Charles to proactively search palace files relating to the former Prince Andrew. More on that in a moment, but first, Gary O'Donoghue has our top story tonight from Washington.
Jeffrey Epstein's survivors have brought their fight for justice to Capitol Hill, furious that some of their details were released in the files. They say that's traumatized them all over again.
Abusers' names and contact information is redacted while our faces and stories are left on full display. This is not protection. This is betrayal.
Well, it's not even just betrayal. It's an open threat. Hey, these are the people who are trying to destroy the Trump administration. Here's their contact information. What you happen to do with that on behalf of dear leader is completely up to you. The fact that more of these survivors haven't had death threats or assassination attempts against them is nothing short of a fucking miracle, which probably proves that the general public is on their side and not on the side of Epstein, MAGA, and this administration. That is the only saving grace, because otherwise, many of these women should have been attacked by now. And I'm very glad that they haven't, and that also goes to show that this attempt at trying to threaten and intimidate the victims by leaving their information open to the public is in effect proving that the public is on their side and not on the side of this administration.
Partial release of these files by the DOJ, riddled with improper redactions that expose the vulnerable and shield the powerful from accountability, is not justice.
Give us the rest of the files and start the investigations. Start the investigations on the things that are in the files right now.
I mean,
inside the cap.
Yes. And the fact that that's not happening also screams cover up. It doesn't matter that she's using the excuse that it would destroy our government. Go for it. Like, that's the whole point of the criminal justice system. And if there are that many corrupt people in the government that it would actually destroy our institutions and the foundations of our federal government, then we fucked up a long time ago. And yes, if we need to hold snap elections across the board and have emergency elections because so many people were in the Epstein files, then that's exactly what we should be doing. And anything short of that is a cover-up or conspiracy to cover up.
Capitol, the Attorney General Pam Bondi was appearing before an influential committee for the first time since the release of the files.
Do you swear or affirm under penalty of perjury that the testimony you're about to give is true and correct to the best of your knowledge, information, and belief?
And she keeps smiling because she knows she's about to lie under oath.
Believe, so help you God.
I did.
With some of the survivors in the room, one Democrat used their presence to attack the Department of Justice.
And if you are willing, please raise your hands if you have still not been able to meet with this Department of Justice. Please know for the record that every single survivor has raised their hand.
In her opening statement, Pam Bondi had expressed sympathy for the victims, but no apology. And what about further criminal indictments?
I find it...
How many have you indicted?
Excuse me. I'm going to answer the question.
Answer my question.
No, I'm going to answer the question the way I want to answer the question.
No,
Your
you're going to answer the
theatrics are
question the way I
ridiculous.
asked it.
You don't tell me anything.
I did tell you because... That call for prosecutions by many Democrats extended to Andrew Mount.
again, childlike behavior from the most powerful people in our government.
Baton Windsor.
These two photos staring you in the face are evidence of a crime and more than enough evidence to predicate an investigation against former Prince Andrew. So I ask you, Attorney General Pam Bondi, why did you shut down this investigation last July, and why have you not prosecuted former Prince Andrew?
I don't believe you asked Merrick Garland.
Pam Bondi appeared about to answer that question, but was cut off. Mr. Mountbatten Windsor has always denied he's done anything wrong, but has not recently answered repeated calls for him to come here to answer questions.
Well, and on top of that, right, she immediately deflected. Why didn't you ask Merrick Garland? Why didn't you ask somebody else to do? Like, why are you roasting me about this? Also, what's been released in the Epstein files is plenty for the British government to go after former Prince Charles. Now, granted, mostly with taking away titles and benefits and whatever else, but it does seem like investigations are around the corner. It's just, I guess, again, they're trying. I don't understand, right? It doesn't matter that he's royalty. It doesn't matter that he's disgraced. He's a criminal. Fucking go after him. And if it's so difficult to go after somebody because of their presence and their pedigree, then there is something intrinsically wrong with the justice system, right? If the justice system does not impact everyone equally, then it may as well not exist, which is nuts because we're talking about the UK. The UK, which was one of the first countries to legally execute their king for committing crimes against the state. After the king said, well, I'm the king, I can do whatever the fuck I want. And then a British court said no, and then executed him. So 500 or 600 years later, royalty is committing heinous atrocities, and the British government justice system can't find it within itself to do something about it. Never mind that in the United States, we've never gone after presidents for their criminal activities. We didn't go after Nixon. We didn't go after Andrew Jackson. We didn't go after Coolidge. So, like, our criminal justice system has never actually functioned against the heads of state. And then how many times have senators and congresspeople actually been successfully prosecuted? Probably a handful. So, like, our criminal justice system is being proven time and time again to be toothless. And that needs to change. I agree, True Steel. It is just us. Just the layman who is victims of the Justice Department.
Shame on you.
Oh, for goodness sakes, this is pathetic.
The committee often descended into a shouting match, with the Attorney General launching into her political opponents.
This has been around since the Obama administration. This administration released over 3 million pages of documents.
And redacted them to the point that some of the pages literally look like this napkin. So, like, that's not a good argument.
It's over 3 million, and Donald Trump signed that law.
Members of Congress are continuing to review the unredacted files, which have now led to a number of other names of alleged conspirators being made public, and to repeated questions over why no new prosecutions are being pursued. Well, of course, when it comes to Andrew Mountbatten Windsor, congressional committees have no power to compel them to come and give evidence here.
Right, okay, fine. Yes, you can make the argument that foreign citizens are out of the jurisdiction of Congress. Okay, fine. But the point being is that America is covering up, and Pam Bondi is being allowed to just lie and pull political stunts on national television in front of a congressional hearing. Like, the fact that her mic isn't being cut off, that she isn't being arrested, that she isn't being charged, like, it's not as if Congress can't use their authority to do a checks and balance on the Justice Department or on the judicial branch, right? I'm just saying. Leave Pam alone. Why? Why should we leave her? Why can't she lie? Right. You know, it's her First Amendment right to lie, except under oath. Then it's no longer her right. Okay, breaking.
Let's move on to Thomas Massie courageously been pushing Thomas Massie, Ro Khanna. Yesterday, they were able to view some of the unredacted files. And so what did they do? They immediately came out and started talking about some of those redactions, which, let's all remember this, the express purpose of the legislation which permits redactions says you may only redact for national security and victims' names. Well, what happened? The DOJ has now been caught multiple times redacting the names of the rich, the famous, and the powerful for no purpose and in direct violation of this federal law. So Thomas Massie, Ro Khanna, they go to the DOJ. They are able to review.
Well, here's the thing. If they break the law, why aren't they being charged for breaking the law? And that's the thing, right? Can you only be charged with breaking a law and punished for breaking a law if the law has some sort of punishment to go along with it? Because, I mean, is the law missing? If you don't do this, you'll be fined $5,000 up to 5 years in prison with a felony 1. Like, because that language isn't in there, they could just get away scot-free with not following it. Like, I'm not, maybe it's because I'm not a lawyer, maybe because I don't have a $3,000 Gucci suit, I don't know. But that just doesn't seem to add up to me.
Some of the unredacted files, they immediately start forcing unredacting in public. Here's what they had to say on the steps, and we're going to get to some of the information they released.
I mean, what we're after is the men who Jeffrey Epstein trafficked women to. We want those names published.
Are these men U.S. citizens? What fields do they work in? Is it finance? Is it political?
At least one is a U.S. citizen. At least one is a foreigner. And the other 3 or 4 have names. I'm not sure if they're foreign or U.S.
And which field do they work in? Is it finance, banking, political?
One is pretty high up in the foreign government.
And some are, they're, one of the others is a pretty prominent individual. But I think that the point is that these 6 are just what we found in 2 hours of a review of the files that aren't redacted. The broader issue is why so many of the files they're getting are redacted in the first place. And until that becomes unredacted, the main things that they're sending to the career attorneys to review, I don't think we're going to have full compliance with the law, get to the question that most Americans want to know.
All right, so I'm confused. I'm a little confused. Why aren't they naming names in this interview? If the law states unredacted names of the criminals, and they have those names because they saw the unredacted files, why can't they just list them off in this interview? I get that part of the reason is to build up a little bit of drama and then do it on the congressional floor, which I think they did eventually, but I'm just a little confused. Why aren't they doing that in this interview as well? Or just dropping one name. If it's Prince Charles, well, that cat's already out of the bag. So just say, yes, one of the names was in fact Prince Charles, and let me tell you, the shit we saw was pretty fucking damning, and more to come, right? You could have at least led with that low-hanging fruit, but they didn't even do so. I'm a little confused.
Who were the rich and powerful people who went to this island? Did they rape underage girls? Did they know that underage girls were being paraded around?
6 men implicated, foreign government, someone high up at a foreign government. I would love to see some of that, certainly.
Yeah, honestly, I mean, we would too. So didn't I'm fairly certain they did reveal a few names. And I just want to know if there was a video on that or not, because we could just hurry up and watch that video. Okay, so evidently not. Or at least there isn't a video yet. Anna, did you find a video about that or no? Just let me know, either DM or whatever. And if you can find a video, just add it and let me know. Okay.
Would immediately afterwards, Thomas Massie actually started tweeting out very specific redactions, which they had been made, which violated, again, the very law that they authored and were passed through Congress, signed by the president. And the DOJ had to start immediately unredacting said files as part of this request. Let's put this next one up here on the screen. Thomas Massie, in response to my posts today, the DOJ has now unredacted an FBI file that labels 2 individuals as co-conspirators. They have unredacted a file that lists several men who be implicated, and they have tacitly admitted Sultan Ahmed bin Sulayam was the sender of the torture video. Now,
Jesus. Sultan Ahmed. I mean, I'm assuming Sultan isn't his name, but rather his title. So, there it is. But I guess that is his name? Okay, well, never mind. Business leader. So, okay, so no, okay, my bad. That is my ignorance. That is my ignorance. I knew Sultan was a title. I didn't realize it could also be used as a name. But then again, I guess Caesar could be used as a name too. So, my ignorance, mea culpa. But yeah, that is redonkulous. And is anything happening about that? Evidently not. That's not reassuring at all. So, a prominent member of Dubai's economy. And he appeared in the World Economic Forums in Davos. And evidently, big bad wolf. That's, yeah, that's deeply disturbing and concerning. So, there's the headline part of this video. We still have a boatload to get through, and it's already an hour through. So, looks like, well, we did kind of cover this.
good morning, everybody. Happy Tuesday. Have an amazing show for everybody today. What do we have, Crystal?
Bunch of breaking news we had to add into the show with regard to the Epstein files. So yesterday, Ghislaine Maxwell pleaded the fifth, but she did say, hey, she will exonerate Trump if he gives her a pardon. So break that down for you, Matt.
So we did cover that on Tuesday then. Okay. Still, the audacity, right? Ghislaine said that they will exonerate Clinton and Trump. Meanwhile, all these names are still being redacted by the Epstein files, no charges being made, but it is implied by the mere fact that Ghislaine is willing to exonerate these two names that if she doesn't, that they are in fact culpable. She's looking for freedom by trying to appeal to both Democrats and Republican leadership. That's nuts. It's like people who are named King or Sire for the guy named Sultan. Yes. I never said that I was a paragon of virtue or international knowledge and culture either. So, listen, I'm only human, okay? I am sorry. I saw the name Sultan, and I thought that was a title, just like Prince Charles. His first name isn't Prince, it's Charles, okay? Mea culpa. All right, but we're trying to get through these, and a lot of these videos are long, so.
Let's move on to our eugenics block, which is also an Epstein block, because Epstein, as
a eugenics block of a story? Holy shit, that's a little heavy, don't you think? We have to talk about eugenics for 20 minutes because there's that much to talk about. Oh, 13 minutes, my bad.
As it turns out, we just covered this basically, is very interested in eugenics. Ryan, you and Moz over at DropSite did this incredible report, and I dropped in at the last minute and added, like 100 words. But this was fantastic reporting. You guys went back years and painted, I think, a really important piece of this overall picture. Yeah, team effort over at Dropside, though. Maz and I slapping our names on it. It's hard to even explain what the heck this guy's doing here, because it's so far kind of advanced into I keep using the word creepy, but there isn't really a better one. This is somebody who understood that he himself was not of the kind of brilliant mind that was going to understand and code break either DNA or Bitcoin or things like that. But he understood it enough to understand who the people were, and to be able to connect them and to finance them, and then to try to, I think he talks about wanting to have cloned himself. Who among us? Who among us? And to do DNA experiments and so the headline of the article refers to how he wanted to turn he built his New Mexico ranch, he said, to be this Manhattan Project for basically kind of hacking the genome. So he wanted to connect NSA hackers to biology. That's why I said in the last segment that this biotech research thing actually tracks. This is the kind of thing.
Okay. I keep forgetting that whenever Ryan, his beautiful visage is on the screen, there's a whole lot of buildup before the point. But this headline is fucking disturbing as shit. So let's see. Okay. Jeffrey Epstein recruited NSA code breakers for Genome Manhattan Project. Like many of the oh my God, can I not English today? Like many of his ultra-wealthy peers, Jeffrey Epstein was fascinated by gene therapy and life extension technology. He once suggested to news anchor Katie Couric, to her shock and disgust, that he even planned to clone himself. But his interest in genomics was more than a passing fancy. It was an enduring obsession during the final decades of his life. Which, how old was Jeffrey Epstein to use a phrase like decades of his life? 66. So final decades, what, for the past 20 years? Like that's not the final. That's the last third of his fucking life. That's a weird way of phrasing that. And to clone himself. But his interest in genomics was more, and that, you guys have seen it. You see it from Peter Thiel and all these other
Brian
transhumanists. He was way ahead of it. Yeah. He was a pioneer in creating this space that the Thiels and the Johnsons have kind of moved into, and they're really making this their obsession, that they're going to live forever. Tim Dillon has had a good, couple bits on that. Like, why? Yeah. Your life? You want this life to go on? You don't seem happy. Yeah. So he is like the real life Mr. Sinister. No, I mean, exactly, right? And that's kind of the point, too. All of these tech bros are obsessed with immortality and being gods and kings and technocrats and this, that, and the other, just like the pharaohs and kings of old, who were also pieces of garbage and lorded their power and wealth over the masses. Except now, we have the technology to make that a reality, or at least getting close to at any rate. So we already have exceedingly wealthy individuals with exceeding influence in politics and industry. We then give them unprecedented health and life spans to then entrench their power and their influence that much more. There are dozens of sci-fi series out there, most notably Altered Carbon, where that actually happened, where humans can basically indefinitely clone themselves and use whatever alien technology, which are discs, apparently, imprinting their consciousness onto these discs, and just never-endingly, over the course of centuries, exist, to the point where they do control governments, where they control multiple planet systems or star systems, and people have no chance whatsoever of even coming close to reaching those heights. Like, if you wanted to ensure feudalism never disappears, giving immortality or an extended lifespan to only the rich is how you do that. And that's also a guaranteed way of ensuring that the masses end up being enslaved. Because, I mean, we're practically enslaved as it is. Minus Alexander the Great, he was a saint. Hey, leave my boy Alexander alone, okay? He did nothing wrong, okay? So he conquered a lot of Persia and had to turn back to Greece because his army was going to murder him for being away for so long. Big whoop. Okay. Trying to move along. Spy footage came.
Jeffrey Epstein's victims have long said they believe they were being filmed by the sex offender. And this footage from a spy cam style camera inside Epstein's Palm Beach house appears to show just that. The footage has been obtained for the first...
Why is it that whenever there's footage that is deeply, deeply incriminating, it is the most pixelated footage in all of history? And I get it, technology has improved markedly in the past 20 years, but that's the best we had back in 2008 or 12 or whenever this came from? Are you shitting me? This is ridiculous.
First time by Channel 4 News. Because the quality is so grainy, during our investigation we analysed it frame by frame, and we've slowed it down here so that you can see what's happening. A man, likely Epstein himself, at one point looks towards the hidden device. Images of what seems to be his accomplice, Ghislaine Maxwell, as well as what appears to be several women or girls. So how do we know what this is and where it comes from? Epstein's Palm Beach property was raided by law enforcement in 2005, where police filmed this footage. Pause it here. You can see his office in the corner of the ground floor living area. This is the exact same office captured in the spy cam footage. We can match up...
By the way, looks like it came from... Oh, sorry. This table looks like is where that camera was installed, based on that angle.
Up some features like the stairway pattern in the shelves, the two small bookshelves above a larger middle shelf, a framed painting, behind an oversized lampshade, and an ornamental plate on the top middle shelf. So where is this spy cam in the office? Well, we believe it's here. And in the footage of the 2005 police raid, we can see that there is what looks like a wide clock positioned on a low side table facing the desk. In a 2006 affidavit from Palm Beach detective Joseph Recarey, the man who led investigations into Epstein during the 2000s, he said that there were two covert cameras hidden within clocks, one in the garage and another in the library area. He adds that a computer was located which was believed to contain the images from the cameras, and that all of these images appeared to come from the one positioned behind Epstein's desk.
And this was
and then in a
circa
2010 deposition,
2005.
Detective...
So, okay. What were the average video capabilities in 2005? SD. So, recording in consumer camcorders. Video size. There we go. That's probably the best way to ask that question. Sharing site usage, web video, online sharing sites. Motherfucker. Size. None of these say size. Oh, the file size. Of fucking course. So 3020 by 240, 640 by 480. So 640i or p or however that's supposed to be used, or no, it's 480p. Sorry. I've 2005. Okay, when did HD come out? So yeah, okay, that's what I fucking thought. 1080p became commercially available around 2006. Granted, that's a year after this police report. But that's commercially available. Epstein was a fucking spy for Israel. And ludicrously wealthy besides. So you mean to tell me the best he could get for a small camera was 480p? Like 19 Windows 95 graphics? I guess I don't know.
Ricari said that despite the lighting being poor and not being 100%, he thought that it was Mr. Epstein in the videos, adding, "You know, I can say the female did appear to be redacted word. One of the assistants appeared to be redacted word. You know, that kind of thing." Now, one police report states that Epstein bought and installed a hidden clock camera himself. But in this deposition, the police suggest that they themselves may have actually helped Epstein install it following a 2003 burglary at his home.
So the police only had access to the shittiest quality. Like, what's the point of having a hidden camera then if it's too fucking pixelated for actual use? Like, I don't understand. I don't understand. If you couldn't use that as evidence anyway because pixel. Like, Final Fantasy VIII's graphics were better than that. Okay. Nicki Minaj has a live stream going on, and I want to hear her madness. We'll be back. Sure, that's fair. I understand. Okay.
This is Democracy Now!, democracynow.org.
This is Samuel Ronan, congressional candidate in Ohio's 15th Congressional District, running as a Republican against incumbent Mike Carey. This is the stream where we are covering world and local events. Welcome to the stream. Like, share, and subscribe.
The War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman. We end
SamRonan.com.
In today's show, going back to Attorney General Pam Bondi's appearance on Capitol Hill Wednesday. This is Bondi being questioned by our next guest, Democratic Congresswoman Becca Balint of Vermont.
And we now know that Lutnick went to Epstein's Island in 2012. How was that not a deal breaker for the president? And why aren't you asking questions of the Commerce Secretary about what he saw when he was at the island, which he lied about not ever going to? Why are you not asking these questions? And I see that my time is almost expired, so I will say this. Do the right thing, Attorney General. Meet with the survivors. They have been asking for a year. Meet with the survivors. Do the right thing. I yield back.
Gentlelady yields back. The gentleman from South Carolina is recognized for 5 minutes.
May I have 20 seconds of his time?
So that'd be up to the gentleman, but
absolutely, Madam.
Thank you. I was curious if you, Congresswoman, asked Bill Clinton that. Didn't see one tweet, not one. I didn't see one tweet when Joe Biden was in office about Bill Clinton. Didn't ask Merrick Garland anything about Epstein, not once. When he was...
What the fuck does that have anything to do with... Like, this is the part that I'm not really understanding is she's being asked questions. She's not answering them. Instead, she gets to proselytize to her audience using other congresspeople's time to make wild arguments and accusations that has nothing... Like, why is she not being held in check? And then, of course, you have the parliamentarian nonsense that's going on. Oh, you only have so much time to do this, that, or the other. Meanwhile, Pam Bondi gets to do whatever the fuck she wants with no consequences. Like, in this case, Jim Jordan, because I think that's who's chairing this, if I saw the guy correctly, is aiding and abetting Pam Bondi by allowing her to act this way and not holding her accountable and not directing her to answer the questions and stick to just the facts of the hearing and that is being held that day in this moment. Maybe I need to learn more about congressional parliamentarian process, because evidently It's just the OK Corral.
And also, I want the record to reflect that, with this anti-Semitic culture right now, she voted against a resolution condemning.
Is Jewish. I just want to be clear. Do you want to go there, Attorney General? Or do you want to go there? Are you serious? Talking about anti-Semitism to a woman who lost her grandfather in the Holocaust? Really?
I mean, she has every right to get upset about that, but that's, again, it's just political bickering back and forth. She has every right to be angry about that. I would have probably lost my shit about it too. But the fact that Pam Bondi was allowed to just say that instead of focusing on the actual questions that were that exchange should have never happened. Let alone Pam Bondi being able to go through a binder of how to get under the people's skin and then read that verbatim. So, a lot of these videos have to do with Pam Bondi. No shock there. All right, let's try this one.
This is Democracy Now!, democracynow.org. I'm Amy Goodman. On Capitol Hill, the heads of ICE, U.S. Customs and Border Protection, and U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services testified Tuesday before the House Homeland Security Committee. House Democrats repeatedly grilled them over the recent killings of Renee Good and Alex Preti in Minneapolis, as well as President Trump's overall mass deportation campaign and the violent tactics used by federal agents across the country. The hearing came as Democratic lawmakers continue to oppose new funding for the Department of Homeland Security unless Republicans agree to their demands to rein in federal immigration agents. This could lead to another partial government shutdown. This is Democrat Shrey Thanadar of Michigan questioning the immigration officials.
The ICU nurse, Alex Preti, deserve to die?
I cannot comment on an ongoing investigation, sir.
Did Renee Good deserve to die?
Sir, I can't comment on ongoing investigations.
Well, just because you can't comment on ongoing investigations, the fact of the matter stands that extrajudicial murder is not allowed. Whether it's against black people, whether against white people, whether it's cops performing the murder, or ICE and Border Patrol performing the murder. That's not what is supposed to be happening. At all. At any point in time from the very onset of our nation's history, except that has been so normalized in our society that it barely gets questioned, it barely gets any traction, just barely anything. And then these pieces of shit can just sit there and be like, I plead the fifth. Can't comment on an ongoing investigation. It's disgusting. It's insulting.
Lines, do you agree with Secretary Noem and Vice President Vance's characterization of Renee Good as a domestic terrorist?
Sir, I can't speak to their comments as that they're their own, but as an ongoing investigation, I can't speak to that.
Director Lyons, what did your agents mean when he said, you raise your voice, I erase your voice? In the video just that we have seen, all of us have seen.
Sir, I'm not aware of that video that you have, sir. I can't comment on what that officer is.
They literally, so apparently they just played this video? I mean, is that not what he just said? Hold on.
Have seen voice. In the video just that we have seen, all of us have seen.
So, did you hear him say this in the video that we just watched?
Sir, I'm not aware of that video that you have, sir. I can't comment on what that officer has said.
So the video that you just watched, you're not aware of?
During Tuesday's House hearing, Texas Democrat Al Green called for Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem to be prosecuted.
Yes.
The secretary should be investigated right along with those officers who are out there engaged in this ungodly conduct. She should be investigated. And in my opinion, based upon my observation, secretary should not only be investigated, The secretary should be prosecuted right along with those officers. This man did not brandish. This man was not armed. This man did not attempt to hurt those officers. They should all be prosecuted. And you, persons associated with the Trump
Gentleman's time.
Say lock her up. I say lock her up.
Texas.
Well, at least Al Green is standing his ground, so we'll give that. Okay. So there seems to be growing spine growth amongst Democrats, but here's the thing. You had a whole year. Why did you wait until now, close to the primaries, to start speaking up and finding that spine of yours? Like, that's the thing that really bothers me about Democrats. They only stand up for the right reasons when it is politically expedient for them to do so. On top of the fact that they spent a whole year passing legislation that enabled these atrocities in the first place. So, like, yes, Al Green, 100% thank you for saying the words. But how many of your votes contributed to this? Okay, Minnesota leaders.
Meanwhile, Minnesota leaders are joining the country's top immigration officials in Washington, answering questions about Operation Metro Surge. That hearing happening right now on Capitol Hill. For more on this, let's bring in CBS News congressional correspondent Caitlin Huey-Burns. So, Caitlin, let us know what we missed here. Bring us up to speed on what happened in the last hour.
Hey, Chanel. Well, that context from Camilo is really important here because what we have heard from the hearing so far is this focus on the coordination, critics would say the lack thereof, between state.
Okay. I don't know how often I blink when I talk, but this lady looks like she's about to take off. Like, her blinking, like, it's making me tired just trying to mock that. Like, trying to replicate it. Like, what? Is that a tell? Is she lying right now? I mean, what is going on with the amount of, like, it is extremely distracting.
State and local and federal authorities. And that had been kind of at the crux of all of this before these killings. Now, take a listen to this exchange that I thought was pretty notable. Senator Gary Peters, a Democrat from Michigan, asked Commissioner Schnell, who oversees corrections, about that kind of coordination. Take a listen to what they said.
Has ICE or anyone else at DHS attempted to coordinate their operations with state and local law enforcement or even notified them when they are conducting immigration enforcement, according to your knowledge?
There has not been a planful approach. There has not been efforts to coordinate or discuss their targets. We have not been provided with a list of targets, as a for instance, where there could be some opportunities where we have those dangerous people that represent a risk to Minnesota's public safety that we could coordinate. So that has not happened.
Now, that seems to contrast with what Homan said at the press conference earlier. But this is, turning into perhaps a he said, she said type of thing. And what's notable here is that we've seen this hearing a couple of days ago in the House where top immigration officials from the Trump administration were called upon. In this hearing, you're hearing from local officials on the ground, in addition to those Trump administration officials who will appear later on this afternoon. So this is something that the chairman of the committee, Rand Paul, had designed. He wanted to hear from officials in Minnesota, and there also are two Republicans on that panel that you're watching here too, from Minnesota. That experience, and also the experience from the top. And so
this just goes to show that what we've been saying about lawlessness behavior and the fact that ICE is just acting of their own volition and not coordinating with agencies, whether or not they should be there, which, in my humble opinion, ICE should be nowhere near civilized society, especially the way it operates presently. But the fact that they're not even attempting to dot their I's and cross their T's by even sending notices to local PD or state agencies, like, hey, we're here, we're going to do stuff, these are the names. Like, they didn't even pretend to follow that courtesy. They're just arriving, deploying, and terrorizing citizens. Idaho. Wonderful.
The thudding of a helicopter, and then the screaming sent Annabelle Romero running.
All of a sudden, like, I started seeing people running and screaming.
And you join in because
I'm
that's what
scared.
everybody's doing.
Everybody's doing it, and like, you know, you're scared. What do you do when you're scared? You run and you hide.
An estimated 500 people, including 60 children, were at an October horse racing event near Boise, Idaho, as armored vehicles and a swarm of armed agents rumbled in. Among them, a man on horseback. Canyon County Sheriff Kieran Donahue.
How common would it be for an operation to have a helicopter, drones, 5 armored vehicles?
Oh, it's this racist piece of shit, motherfucker. So this was from Idaho. This piece of shit is from Idaho. Because remember when we covered him on Tuesday? He was like, well, I've seen these gang members that were much younger than 14 before. Motherfucker, you went to a horse race that was for the community where there were families, children, gathered to watch the horses, and you invaded them like it was 1826, and it was the indigenous peoples of Idaho, and you came in like the fucking cowboys, like Custer's last goddamn stand. Knowing that much more context about this motherfucker makes me that much angrier. So they literally invaded a fucking festival in Idaho as if it was the Wild West.
200 officers. How often
Not
do you
often
actually...
at all. So this was a very, very large-scale operation, maybe the largest I've ever been involved with.
5 people have been arrested for nonviolent illegal gambling. About 100 undocumented people were arrested and over 300 U.S. citizens detained.
So, all of that to detain 300 U.S. citizens, violating their rights, terrorizing a community, all to maybe get 100 undocumented migrants, which at this point could mean they had their legal status revoked without their knowledge days, hours, or weeks ago.
That ratio igniting a firestorm of controversy in this community, and in a lawsuit filed, the ACLU is accusing Donahue and the federal government of using excessive force, including against children.
Shit.
What stands out about this raid?
That there were so many children involved.
As word of the raid spread through this agricultural community, immigration lawyer Nikki Ramirez-Smith raced to the scene.
I drove out here to try to figure out what was happening because my phone was frantically blowing up and I heard flashbangs.
They're shooting! They're shooting!
Violent protest screams.
Right. They're shooting at people that weren't even protesting at that point, that were just trying to get away from the armed sociopaths that invaded their otherwise enjoyable festival.
So I decided to jump in my car and come out here and see what was happening.
Hiding in a horse stall, Romero, born and raised in Idaho, called her 14-year-old daughter Suhei, telling her to stay in the truck and watch over her younger siblings, Alfredo, who was 6, and Avia, 8. Moments later, agents in tactical gear moved in.
They came in, they're pointing their guns and everything at us, and I was there and they're like telling me to put my hands up, and all I'm asking is for clarification. Who are you? Why am I being detained?
And their response?
Their response, I'm gonna blow your head off.
Video later released on social media shows it getting heated. You can hear one officer bark.
They kicked me, they punched me, they stepped on me like I couldn't breathe or anything. They had me in the horse shavings, and there was 5 of them on top of me.
At the other end of the track, rubber bullets were fired near families to push them back. Law enforcement also confronted Annabelle's 14-year-old daughter, Suhei.
And they're like, get out of the truck, get out of the truck. And I just stay there, and I just don't get out. And then that's when they pull me out, and I land on my side.
And Alfredo, did the officers try to pull you out of the car?
No, I opened the door and I was trying to protect my sister.
Did you see what they did to your sister? Did you see them kind of? Okay, good.
And that's Idaho. If Idaho is not a stand your ground state, I would be fucking right there. Bam. Oh, hold on. That's driving privileges. Whoops. Hold on. Where's the stand your ground map? Ah, damn it. Did I accidentally get rid of the wrong thing? Son of a biscuit. I got rid of the wrong map. I thought this was the stand your ground map. Fuck. Whoops. All right, well, hold up. We can fix this. No, I don't want to watch a YouTube video. I'm pretty... Yep, Idaho. I got to refine that one that had the maps. But point being, like, I get that most people wouldn't bring their guns to a festival, but that might be part of the point. That was probably why this raid happened at a festival, because presumably people aren't going to be armed. Like, again, it's galling, because here you have this child who can't, I mean, what did they say? He was 6? This 6-year-old said, I wanted to protect my sister who got drug out of a car of their truck by armed people. Like, we are literally watching. I mean, how many different ways do we have to say it? This is terrorism. This is the same shit that police pulled against black people during the civil rights movement. It's the same shit that we did to the Japanese during World War II. It's the same shit we did to the Chinese, the Italians, the Irish. Every immigrant group we did this to. We did it to the newly freed slaves right after the Civil War. And prior to the Civil War, we did this to the indigenous peoples all across the country. We have never once stopped terrorizing marginalized communities. Granted, we haven't been doing this for quite some time, at the very least not to the degree that this is happening. Obviously, law enforcement have been terrorizing the black community since, well, forever, right? And we've seen police brutality and mass killings happening, right? And we've seen even police raids occur in cities. And we've seen police crack down on activist groups and protests such as Occupy, right? But to systemically target communities of color across the country, either in major housing facilities or in festivals or going door to door in communities, we haven't seen that since the 60s. And that's fucking disgusting that we're seeing it at all. And it was terrorism then, and it is terrorism now.
Was it scary, you two?
They were brought onto the racetrack along with hundreds of others.
I was just there looking around with my siblings everywhere, just trying to find someone I recognize.
They herded us like cattle, basically. And I was just screaming for my kids and everything.
375 of them U.S. citizens or legal residents, many with hands zip-tied behind their backs, waiting for hours to be processed by ICE. The family was reunited, but when...
Which goes to show, ICE honestly, any police force, right? Any policing agency, or that even claims to be a policing agency, needs probable cause to engage in something like that. The only reason why cops can raid facilities or buildings is because there is probable cause that there are massive amounts of criminal elements in that building, or that crimes are occurring in that building, such as child trafficking, right? Which we have seen and we have covered and we have venerated, right? It was in California, October, November timeframe, I think it was, where there was a sting all across California that ended up liberating 600 children or something along those lines. Probable cause, massive amount of law enforcement presence, all acting in concert. Invading a festival is not probable cause in any sense of the word. And by any definition, you can't just round up everybody at a fucking fair and festival and then just be like, show me your papers. All of those Americans in lawful legal status, all of them, the 375, should file a class action against ICE, the city police, and the state for allowing that shit to happen in the first place. Fucking disgusting.
Suhey asked to go to the bathroom. She said agents insisted on zip tying her, too.
I'm just like there crying, like I'm struggling to breathe, like I can't even get words out.
With her hands bound behind her back, Romero says she was unable to console her daughter.
I can't hug her, I can't hold her because you guys won't let me go, and like she's only 14.
And then that's when the soldiers are like, it's orders, and my mom was like, if it's orders, at least do it in the front. And then they zip tie me, but they zip tie me so tight to the point where it leaves bruises.
Can you show me, Suhey, where you had bruises?
I had bruises all right here along both wrists.
Romero says she was then grilled about her own children.
And they're like, how are they your kids and all this stuff. I'm like, I didn't know I needed to carry their birth certificates around. And
eventually, more than 300 U.S. citizens were released.
It was right around here where they had parked the armored vehicles. And it was on this side of the fence, just beyond here.
I guess if you go to a festival, a fair, a communities thing or whatever, and you're in one of the states that allows concealed carry or open carry or stand your ground, evidently you're not safe anymore in public. Even in Idaho, in a state that is as ruby red as you can possibly get. Apparently you're not safe just going to the horse races with your family. Outstanding. Glad you fucking mentioned that. Outstanding. I cannot fucking wait to go to the county fair and apparently keep an eye out to make sure that ICE doesn't decide to invade the county fucking fair. Because Ohio has a large immigrant community. A very large immigrant community. Hispanic, Somali, Middle Eastern, Bangladeshi, like you name it. There are immigrants here in Columbus, Ohio, and Central Ohio, Dayton, Ohio, Cincinnati, Cleveland, right? And all of those cities have fairs. All of those cities have their farmers markets. They do have horse races and tractor combines and all that other fun stuff. 4-H is still quite popular in Ohio because Ohio is still very much so a rural state. But evidently, that might be grounds for invasion by our own country against our own citizens. So you know what? And I will say this. Arm yourselves. If you are in the following states, which, now I got to find that list again. If you're in the following states and you want to go to a public community event for your city or your county, and you're in the state of Alabama, Alaska, Arizona, Arkansas, Florida, Georgia, Idaho, Indiana, Iowa, Kansas, Kentucky, Louisiana, Michigan, Mississippi, Missouri, Montana, Nevada, New Hampshire, North Carolina, Oklahoma, Pennsylvania, South Carolina, South Dakota, Tennessee, Texas, Utah, West Virginia, or Wyoming, and you want to go to a public festival, farmer's market, horse race, or county fair, your states have stand your ground laws. And open carry, presumably. Ohio has unlicensed concealed carry, meaning you can conceal carry in Ohio without needing a license. I know that for a fact. So, do with that information what you will, unless you want to be terrorized by your own government. I don't. So evidently, if I want to go to the county fair, I will be armed. And I hope to God the day that I go is not the day that we get raided by ICE and the idiots in blue who are aiding and abetting terrorism in our country, because I don't want to go down in a blaze of glory. I really don't. I'd rather be in Congress and go after this administration, impeach them, and then prosecute every single member of that agency. But I'll be fucking damned if I allow those fucking armed thugs, those domestic terrorists, to zip tie me because I'm in public and they think it's Nazi fucking Germany. I'll be God fucking damned. And I'm telling you straight up, go ahead and ban me, Twitch. This is still a prop. Go ahead and ban me, because I will be damned if I allow them to zip tie me and ask me for my fucking papers. I will resist. I will 100% resist the secret police. 100%. Up to and including with lethal force. Get fucked, ICE. Seriously. You fucking terrorist scum. I cannot make that any more clear. This shit, I did, listen. What does that say? What does that say? U.S. Air Force. U.S. Air Force. What does that say? Manor, right? Haha. Ronan. That says Ronan. That says U.S. Air Force. And this says Staff Sergeant. Okay? I did not serve my country. I did not enlist. I did not swear an oath to protect and defend the Constitution from all enemies, both foreign and domestic, so that I could watch domestic terrorists invade our cities, terrorize our communities, and attempt to subjugate people of color because the racist pedophile in charge told them to. Absolutely. I'm sorry. Granted, I would love to get a real one of these that isn't a prop. I would love to. And I would love to go travel to these places where these raids are happening. I would love to do that. Would love to do that. But unfortunately, my death would be in vain, right? Because then I'd be dead, and then what's going to come of it, right? If Alex Preddy can be murdered in cold blood just for having one of these, and if Renee Good can be murdered in her vehicle and called a fucking bitch, and not a single charge filed against that murderous piece of garbage, then yeah, armed resistance is just going to give them justification, right? So, I get it. I am filled with rage. I am filled with fury. And I cannot fathom why more Americans aren't. I do not understand why there isn't a mass influx of patriotic Americans going to Minnesota, Minneapolis, and surrounding ICE agents like so, and telling them to fucking leave or else. Again, the Boston Massacre had, 6 deaths? And it was, 13 redcoats? And that was one of the historic moments that directly relayed to the Revolutionary War. And I know there were more events, obviously. There were other things that happened, but the Boston Massacre was specifically notable. How is this, that raid in Idaho, the murder of Alex Preddy and Renee Good, and the other 7 people whose names are hardly ever mentioned in the news, how is that not the modern day Boston Massacre? Why is that not considered the ICE Massacre? Why? Why is it not mentioned? Why is it not framed this way? And why the flying fuck are we not outraged about it? I get it. I am outraged, but I have to go to work. I have a family. I have kids. I have a mortgage. I have a car payment. Or I have to take care of my elderly family. Or I have a dog and a cat that I don't want to eat my corpse. Like, I get that we all have stressors and other things that are keeping us down, but at what point is it too much? At what point is the brink finally achieved? When do we achieve that critical mass? Because if it isn't concentration camps filled with 3,000 plus children, if it isn't invading American cities, if it isn't zip tying children and using them as bait, if it isn't every major player in politics and industry and in the military in the Epstein files, if it isn't the cover-up, what has to happen? We invaded another fucking country, for God's sakes. We aided and abetted genocide for 2 whole years and continue to do so. What's the limit? Because, I mean, at this point, we are murdering citizens in the streets. We are terrorizing communities. We are arresting citizens, white, black, or otherwise, and demanding to see their papers, which is literally the shit that happened in Nazi Germany. We have concentration camps. We're invading other countries. We're threatening our own fucking allies. We are covering up conspiracy of the most heinous individuals in human history who are engaging in pedophilia, cannibalism, and worse. Like, what else needs to happen? Are we so selfish as a society? Are we so isolated by pulling ourselves up by our bootstraps that until it happens to me, we can't care if it happens to thee? Like, Idaho is the... Like, when you think of Idaho, you think of potatoes and white people. Yes, there happens to be a large immigrant Hispanic community in Idaho, as it turns out. But you don't think immigration raids, you don't think all this other shit, and it's happening in Idaho. It's happening in Pennsylvania. It's happening in more and more places. It's happening right now in Maine, Pennsylvania, Chicago, Idaho, evidently, Minneapolis, Ohio, California. I think there's rumors that it's getting started in Florida. Of course, that's where a lot of people are being trafficked in the first place, right? That's where some of the concentration camps are. Just like Texas is the hotbed for the concentration camps as well. I'm sure there's immigration raids happening in Texas, but they're not making the news because it's Texas. Of course, there are going to be racist, xenophobic pieces of shit in Texas. It is happening in at least a dozen states at this point. Are we waiting until it's all 50 states? Are we waiting until it's in 1,000 counties? Are we waiting until it's every major city? Like, what are we waiting for? What will finally trigger a general strike? Mass civil protest. It's one of those two things that we need. So it's either a general strike or major national protests. What is it? What's it finally gonna? Because we've already seen other countries' populations hit their boiling point. We've seen it in Bangladesh. We're seeing it happen right now in Argentina, right? And we've seen it even happen in European countries recently. France, of course. I think we've seen it happen in Spain recently. I think Italy had some major protests. Again, we had the Arab Spring not 10 years ago. And I think the European Spring happened in the early thousands. So, like, What's it gonna fucking take? Just remember that without ammo, that's just a fancy club. Learn the bow and arrow. Well, this is a prop anyway. This is not real. It just looks real because that's how I ordered it for my cosplay when I cosplay as a Call of Duty soldier. A soldier of fortune. So, suffice to say, I have no clue how else to convey that we are being invaded by our own country. Our economy is crumbling. We are being led by criminals and pedophiles. And we are actively committing crimes against humanity, violating international law. Like, I don't know how else to say that. And to get the word out there that we must needs do something about it. And I am saying that as a citizen. I'm saying that as a veteran. I am saying that as a candidate for the United States House of Representatives, District 15, as a Republican. I am saying it in every possible capacity that I can. As a candidate, as a veteran, as a citizen. We have to do something. Because the boots are marching 1 by 1, 2 by 2, 3 by 3, hurrah. And it is not if they are coming to a community near you, but when. And literally, not figuratively, Trump is threatening to do it for the general elections and possibly the primary elections. If we are invading communities to interfere with elections, like, is that too late? Like, is that enough to finally get it through everybody's head? Like, this is not good? What's it gonna take? And I'm sorry that this has been a very long tangent, but I don't know. I guess I'm a little riled up and I'm a little confused because I thought we all were sitting in high school reading through World War II history like everybody else, and like, wow, I wouldn't have allowed the Nazis to do this shit in my country because fuck them Nazis. I would have punched Hitler straight in the nose. Goebbels was a piece of shit. Every single teenager in America said that for generations. And here we are.
Millions of pages of documents related to Jeffrey Epstein, providing more information on the convicted sex offender's crimes. Among the files, claims bodies are buried near Epstein's Zorro Ranch in Santa Fe County. Tonight, the state land commissioner demanding an investigation.
I'm going to keep asking questions and keep poking around until I get an answer.
Those coming from an anonymous email in 2019 addressed to a local radio host.
Aaliyah Chavez spoke with him and has the details of that email.
Yeah, Doug, Shelley, we're also hearing tonight from the Attorney General's office, who says it takes these allegations seriously, but needs more information to do something about it.
So the Department of Justice is taking these allegations seriously, but needs more information, even though there are literal emails which are used for evidence in criminal proceedings that have led to indictments and sentencing of criminals who did their crimes via email. Like, how is this not a cover-up? How is this not a cover-up?
A suspect has been taken into custody in Arizona over the disappearance 10 days ago of the mother of a high-profile U.S. television presenter.
Well, there we go. The moron who tried to cover the camera with grass after it had him dead to rights got caught.
Nancy Guthrie, the mother of NBC's Savannah Guthrie, is believed to have been kidnapped at night from her home in Tucson. Earlier, the FBI released photos and video footage of an armed individual in a full-face balaclava, apparently tampering with a front door.
A full-face balaclava who approached with his head down and then is such a fucking moron. He still looked at the camera and poorly covered it with his hand like this. Like, the dumbest fucking criminals of our era, folks. The dumbest. And not just this guy, Trump, Pam, Kash Patel, Hegseth, J.D. Vance, Marco Rubio. Like, are you fucking kidding me? These people aren't even smart. They're just in cahoots. Oh my
camera, which was outside Nancy Guthrie's home. The person wearing a backpack is seen raising a gloved hand to the camera and then appearing to cover the lens with some vegetation. Our North America correspondent David Willis has the latest from Tucson.
The Sheriff's Department have detained a person of interest, as they put it, in connection with the disappearance of Nancy Guthrie. That person is now being questioned, I understand, by a local law enforcement, and it's thought they were detained at a location to the south of the city of Tucson, and that a search of a building nearby is being carried out or has already been carried out. It's reported that law enforcement basically got a series of tips that led them to this particular person. But this comes, of course, just a matter of hours after the release of video footage taken from the doorbell camera.
So, hours after this footage was released, they find this fucking guy and have wasted 10 days worth of investigation. How is that in of itself not raising red flags? You know what? Apparently I'm too fired up because ooh, okay. And yeah, this next video is Kash Patel screwing up the Guthrie investigation? He's a fucking podcaster and a right-wing conspiracy theorist who was elevated to director of the FBI because he swore to protect the pedophile in chief, who is still not being impeached, not being Article 25, and not being arrested. Oh, this says he was
Tonight,
released?
more than 24 hours after those terrifying surveillance images were released, authorities still on the hunt for whoever is responsible.
Okay. I guess that is a really weird headline there. Definitely clickbait. Trump affair revealed. Oh, yeah. Banging the secretary. Gotcha. You know what? We are going to
Moving on to housing.
We're going to watch this video because not only is this administration doing criminal bullshit left, right, and center, covering up conspiracies, so on and so forth, right? They are actively sabotaging people and openly talking about sabotaging people and their ability to afford housing and engage in the economy. So we will talk about this so that if there happens to be anybody who's MAGA who ends up getting to this point in the stream, or if I clip this video, samronan.com, Congress, like, share, and subscribe, they will see that their guy actually hates them and is actively deceiving them. Maybe hearing it with their own ears and seeing it with their own eyes will be enough. I don't fucking know.
Story we've been wanting to cover for quite a long time. And of course, here in Washington, you will see Republicans kiss Trump's ass on any number of things. Then he tries to do something good for once. And what happens? Let's put it up here on the screen. Proposed ban on investors in the housing market hits a wall in Congress. White House is pressuring GOP in Congress to add an investor ban to existing housing bills, but lawmakers have pushed back. Now, let's just think about this.
Well, let's just think about this generally. We elect members of Congress, House and Senate, to represent us. The Senate represents the state, the House represents us, right? And they are pushing back against preventing investors from buying houses to then rent out to us, artificially inflating the value of homes because they're all in cahoots, which has also been revealed time and time again, that investors and landlords conspire to raise rents and artificially inflate housing costs. Is this thing on? Like, I just...
Venezuela in violation of the law. No problem.
Yeah.
Bomb Iran. No problem. Let's extend massive tax cuts. Oh, yeah, of course. Here you go. Anything else? Didn't see the tweet. Sorry, what was that?
Right.
Yeah, I'm not aware of it. Let's ban investors from. Oh no, we can't have that. We couldn't possibly allow something like that. We'll have to start at a subcommittee level before we start to consider something like this. So this is Washington, people. This is Washington. If you try and do something even marginally good, you're dead. And look, my sources tell me they're going to continue to fight on this, but I'm not going to hold my breath. But the biggest problem and most revealing part of all of it is just to show you where power really lies, what they are willing to hold the line. If anything, that's everything, right? Mm-hmm. What are they actually willing to fight about? And this is one of them. Yeah. And what they talk about here specifically is that, for example, lawmakers in both chambers have resisted adding the investor ban, which traditional free market advocates say they oppose. Any such amendment would derail a bipartisan momentum behind current housing packages. The House overwhelmingly voted in favor of a current bill by 390 to 9. The two chambers will then have to reconcile later. However, the OMB issued a statement reiterating the administration's insistence on this investor ban, but it was immediately had huge pushback. And all of this is because the people they work for are not you or I. It is the very big-time investors themselves, the people who are locking up.
Because remember when COVID shut down the entire country and billionaires lost a fuckload of money, and then prices skyrocketed temporarily, but then they got kind of standard, and then they kept going up anyway, and then housing costs started skyrocketing because people could afford to sell their homes and move across the country because they could work from home. And then real estate investors realized, oh shit, we just bought all of these corporate buildings and nobody's in them. And our real estate is losing value even though we spent millions upon billions of dollars on it. So you know what we need to do? Force workers back into the office against their will and continue to buy real estate and force them to utilize it. Oh, and by the way, we're running out of things to invest in as fintech firms. So you know what else we're going to do? Instead of just speculative things like the AI bubble, buying companies that have been around for over a century and then selling the company to this finance firm and the land to another finance firm, and then scrapping the company for parts as we charge them more rent. Like, I could go on and on and on, but buying residential properties is the next step to owning every public commodity in America. And it's even being discussed that water, air, and soil should be commoditized as well. Let me repeat that. Water, we already pay for with our water bill, right? Water being commoditized in the same exact way as any other product or service. And air, the air we breathe, the air you are currently breathing, they want to charge you to breathe. Not in this video, this isn't the video that covers that, but it is being discussed. If we don't do anything soon, chattel slavery would be an improvement compared to the absolute dystopian subjugation that we will be enduring. I cannot stress this enough. So when do we get to the fucking point about demanding higher housing prices?
Housing stock. Part of the other problem, Crystal, is Trump himself is all over the place. So at the very same time that he wants to, what does he want to do? He wants to ban investors from buying houses. He also is a slave to the boomers who wants to keep their housing prices high. His words, not mine. Here's what he had to say.
Existing housing, people that own their homes, we're going to keep them wealthy. We're going to keep those prices up. We're not going to destroy the value of their homes so that somebody that didn't work very hard can buy a home. We're going to make it easier to buy. We're going to get interest rates down. But I want to protect the people that for the first time in their lives feel good about themselves. They feel like that they're wealthy people. And I want them to understand it. There's so much talk about, we're going to drive housing prices down. I don't want to drive housing prices down. I want to drive housing prices up for people that own their homes. And they can be assured that's what's going to happen.
Yeah.
First of all, even if your home is worth $1 million, let's just say the house that you currently live in is artificially inflated in value and gets up to $10 million. Fantastic. Fantastic. You don't have $10 million to spend because it's your fucking house. Newsflash, if your house is worth $10 million and you live in a neighborhood where all the other houses are worth between $8 and $12 million, if you sell your $10 million home, you only gain equity if you buy a house that is worth less. And I cannot express that enough. You only realize the gains from the value of your home if you A, take an equity loan out. And let me tell you, an equity loan at 9% of $10 million is not something that you or I can afford. So let's be clear on that. So you have to sell the house. And then you take your $10 million and you go to buy another house. And guess what? They're all $10 million. Unless you move out of state. And then maybe it'll be cheaper. If you're lucky. Because right now the average house is $400,000. And housing prices are still very inflated. So I owned a house in Lancaster, Ohio. I bought it for $164,000. And then immediately COVID happened. Immediately. And then 3 years later, housing prices were still sky high, and I was able to sell that house for $283,000. I was able to bank $80K. I then squandered it. But what are you going to do, right, when you're young? Even had I not squandered that $80,000, that's all I got was $80,000. Even though I sold it for $283,000, because I still owed, I think, $100,000. Oh no, I'm sorry. I technically sold the house for $235,000. Let me rephrase. I still owed, I think, $130,000 on the house, which was $100,000, and then paying all the realtor stuff, I got $80,000. Okay. Regardless. Unless you fully own your house, you're not going to get all that money back, right? Because then I still would have only had the $80,000. So, well, then if I was going to go house hunting with $80,000 in my pocket, the only way I don't end up in debt again is if I buy a house for $80,000. Even if I owned it outright, even if I owned that house outright and I paid the 6% and I got $200,000, I would still only have $200,000 to buy a house with. Well, if all of the houses that you can buy went from 164 up to 235, or technically it was 285 with the solar panels, so went up in price by $100,000, that means a shithole for $50,000 is now $150,000. A nice house for $150 is now $250. So even if you kept all of your money from that $235 or even that $285, you would still have to buy a house that was that $250 so you could net $35,000, which does not make you a wealthy person. So the point to be made here is high housing prices means all housing prices are high. Even trailers are high cost now. You can't even get a double wide for less than 70. This is directly harming everyone. People who rent and people who are looking to buy a house. Because if housing prices go up, rental prices go up because property values go up. There is no universe in which high value housing makes cost of living lower. That's not how that works. Simply Steve, I am well versed in medieval combat. Good to know. And the glorious one, Free Palestine. Hear, hear. So, anywho, tangent notwithstanding. We have 40 minutes left.
After more than 3,700 kilometers on foot, a group of Buddhist monks arrive in Washington, D.C. They've walked for more than 3 months, carrying a simple message: peace.
Spread only that message, loving kindness, compassion, and peace to the universe, instead of hate and anger and greedy and delusion, all kind. This world will turn into a better place for all of us to live.
Their journey began in Fort Worth, Texas last October, when 19 monks set out from their temple with little more than robes, backpacks, and their rescue dog, Aloka. From there, through Louisiana and Mississippi, where they began to pick up followers. After that, they trekked through the South, including Columbia, South Carolina, where the crowd swelled to the thousands as word of their journey began to spread. Later, they reached Richmond, Virginia, and more joined. They walked through rain and snow, averaging around 30 kilometers a day. In all, they traveled across 8 states before reaching their final destination, the equivalent of crossing nearly half the country on foot. The monks say that arriving here in Washington, D.C., where they've been welcomed by hundreds of welcoming onlookers, is a sacred moment. They tell us that this is not a protest, this is not a political demonstration, but rather a meditation in motion, one step at a time. Their arrival in Washington comes at a moment of deep political tensions in the United States, giving their message of peace more than just a symbolic weight. For many, the walk for peace stirs strong emotions about the current political climate.
We're broken as a society. We're broken as a country. And we need peace.
Not only did they rack up steps, but followers too, going from having practically no social media presence to a following of millions on platforms like Facebook and Instagram. Even Aloka, their most loyal companion, gained a massive social media following.
As a dog lover, I'm so impressed with this dog and how it's become a symbol for this walk.
The monks say their goal isn't to affect policy, but rather to change hearts and minds, and to remind human beings of all faiths that peace doesn't begin with institutions, it begins within each person. Manuel Rapalo.
I mean, that is absolutely correct. We can choose... Well, okay, let me say it without a prop in my hand. We, the people, can choose better. We can choose to be better. We can choose to not condone hate and discrimination and bigotry. The paradox of, of tolerance must include intolerance of intolerant behavior. If you tolerate intolerance, you cannot have a tolerant society. So choose peace. Fight for peace. Embrace diversity. Once we can do that as a society and change our cultural values towards that goal, people like Trump won't exist. People like Pam Bondi won't exist. People like Epstein and Musk won't exist because they can't exist. if we embrace peace and actual tolerance, not tolerance of intolerance, not the paradox, but true tolerance and acceptance, and we make that the fundamental foundation of our society and prevent intolerant individuals from rising or even existing, right, without severe cultural and social backlash, then all of our problems literally go away. Like, I know that sounds like tree-hugging hippie shit, but we didn't form societies and tribes and villages by attacking each other and slaughtering each other and disparaging each other. We formed those things because we needed to survive, and we wanted to survive, and we knew we had to rely on others for that to happen. And as those grew, fine. That's when paranoia started coming out. And it's like, oh, that tribe's going to take our stuff, and so on and so forth. All I'm getting at is, if we want a better society, we do in fact have to be better people. And we have to hold that better standard to an extremely high level and ensure that people are held accountable to that standard. That's all I need to say. All right?
Very excited now to be joined by author Jack L. High. He is the author of a book which recently became a movie. Let's put it up here on the screen. The Nazi and the Psychiatrist, Hermann Goring, Dr. Douglas M. Kelly, and a fatal meeting of minds at the end of World War II. Recently turned into the movie Nuremberg, which I loved. And whenever your people reached out to have you on the show, I was like, we got to do it. And Crystal even actually just watched the movie as well. So, sir, first of all, just tell us a little bit about, how did you find this story? You know, I consider myself a historian, a history buff, read a lot of books about the Third Reich, about Goring. I was, even Nuremberg, was never once aware.
That's a little disturbing. Like, I read a lot about the Third Reich and Goering and the Nazis. It's like,
of this relationship. How did you find this story? Why did you decide to write a book about it?
It's a strange story, isn't it? And I came onto it completely by chance. I was working on an earlier book about another psychiatrist. That book's called The Lobotomist. Mm-hmm. And in the course of researching that book, I went over this other psychiatrist's papers and found that he had met the psychiatrist who's the subject of The Nazi and the Psychiatrist. His name was Douglas Kelly. They had met in 1938 at a psychiatric conference. And what struck the other psychiatrist about Dr. Kelly was that Kelly was at this conference not to present a paper or to give a talk. He was there to give a magic show before an audience of captive psychiatrists, which I think is a very brave thing to do. And that caught my interest. And then later I did a little more research and found out about Dr. Kelly's involvement with the Nuremberg defendants and took it from there.
Yeah, so talk a little bit about, you know, the story here. So you have this psychiatrist who's brought in, he's American military psychiatrist, brought in to evaluate these Nazis who were going to stand trial at Nuremberg. And he develops a particular relationship with Goering and also decides to go far beyond the, you know, initial task of, hey, just evaluate whether these guys are psychologically competent to stand trial.
That's exactly right.
So, I need to point something out here. There were psychologists brought in to see whether or not the Nazis that were being brought up on charges in Nuremberg were competent to stand trial. Now, if... I guess what I'm not understanding... What if they all just pretended to be, you know, drooling, crazy people, right? I just... You're giving them an out? Because when we have the Nuremberg-style trials here in America for ICE, Border Patrol, and the Trump administration, I can assure you the last thing I am going to be worried about is whether or not they're competent enough to stand trial, because they were competent enough to commit the crimes themselves. And I look forward to them trying to beg and plead for fucking mercy when they literally say, get on the ground or I will fucking blow your head off. Or fucking bitch, or die, or whatever other nonsense that came out of their fucking vile mouths. I have no mercy to give them. If they want mercy, they can ask it from God in the afterlife. But from me and from the American people, there will be none. But I digress.
Dr. Kelly, at the end of World War II, was in the U.S. Army and was in Western Europe because he had been working in field hospitals treating soldiers who today would be diagnosed with PTSD, and doing so quite successfully with his colleagues. And so he was there at the war's conclusion, and the International Military Tribunal, which was the court assembled by the four largest victorious Allied powers, the US, USSR, France, and the UK, wanted to bring in a psychiatrist to evaluate the defendants to determine whether they were mentally fit to stand trial. That's a low, the legal bar of mental fitness is quite low. And so Kelly took on that job, but it was not a very difficult job for a psychiatrist of his caliber, even though he was very young at the time, only 33. And so he decided to assume a much more significant kind of study. He was doing this on his own, completely under the radar. And it was to find out whether these men, who were the top members of the Nazi regime, both military leaders and civilian leaders, whether they shared any kind of psychiatric disorder that could account for their horrible crimes and horrendous behavior before and during.
Okay, well now this is getting good, because we can apply the same fucking logic to to this regime and ICE and Border Patrol. Let's stay tuned.
During the war. So that's what Kelly set out to do. And Hermann Goering, who was the highest ranking of the defendants, immediately captured Dr. Kelly's interest because he was he had many obvious positive qualities. He was smart, he was funny, and curious, and but he also had, of course, dark, dangerous qualities that had helped him rise to the top of the Nazi leadership. And so Kelly spent months working with Goering and the other defendants, testing them, using various psychological evaluative tests, and giving them IQ tests, and also interviewing them extensively to learn more about how they thought and whether they shared what Kelly speculated might be a Nazi virus, not a real virus, but a shared diagnosis of a disorder.
Yeah, let's get into that. So, the movie, and I don't want to ruin the entire thing, it eventually culminates. There's a lot of high drama and a very, complicated relationship between Kelly and between Goering, and he eventually leaves. He comes back to the United States. He seems to struggle deeply with alcoholism. And at one point, Russell Crowe, portraying Hermann Goering, is like, "You will never forget me." And I sense that this will be a very impactful moment on your own life, to the point where Kelly himself seems to be driven to suicide in perhaps the same method that Hermann Goering killed himself with a cyanide capsule. So this really did consume him. It consumed his life, the very question.
Well, yeah. I mean, you're trying to uncover and understand evil and malevolence. And because you're a decent person, it will scar you. So, I mean, okay. I guess, spoiler alert, the dude kills himself. What was the resounding response
of his life? What was it about that interaction and the subsequent book? What were his thoughts that shook him so deeply about his relationship with the High Nazi Command?
What happened was that his involvement with these German defendants turned his professional and personal world upside down. So what Kelly determined after his study of these men, these notorious guys, was that they did not share any kind of psychiatric disorder. In fact, their personalities all fell within a normal range. They were not insane. They were not monsters. They were not mentally ill. And what did that mean? Well, first of all, for Kelly, this was really frightening, because to him it meant that if normal people within a normal range of personality can behave like this and commit these kinds of crimes, crimes against humanity, war crimes, crimes against peace, genocide, all of that, then that means there must be people around us all the time who are capable of that. That was...
That is a very interesting conclusion to derive from that conclusion, from that study, from the facts of that study there. Interesting how he determined that regular normal people can be driven to commit the most heinous acts of vile atrocities ever devised by man. Interesting concept, how that drove him to insanity and eventually suicide, because the reality is we could be surrounded by such people in our day-to-day lives and communities. Amazing. Thanks for the follow. It's I'm saying it as sarcastically as possible because we are literally seeing exactly who those people are today. And that it doesn't even take much to get people to jump on board with Nazi-style behaviors, with discriminatory practices, with aiding and abetting criminal activity, with even engaging in domestic terrorism. As long as you give people an excuse and an out. The excuse, they're taking your freedoms, and an out, you're doing it for your country and we will protect you. There are thousands of people who will sign up ready to go to commit atrocities, to be Nazis, to literally round up the Jews and send them to concentration camps and ghettos to their deaths. We're seeing it happen in real time today, with an overwhelming majority of ICE and Border Patrol agents. Granted, I'm going to paint them all with a red brush because at this point, suffice to say, what's this?
Let's move on to AI.
All right, some more troubling news here. There's an essay that went viral on Twitter, and we can put this up on the screen. It's titled, "Something Big is Happening." This guy is the CEO of a number of AI companies, and he frames this essay in terms of, I thought this was an intelligent way to frame it, of remember back to the beginning, like just before COVID hit, and you and I both remember this time very, very well. We were out on the road doing live and in this. What he says, it's time now, not in an eventually we should talk about this way, in a this is happening right now and I need you to understand it way. I know this is real because it happened to me first. For years, AI had been improving steadily, big jumps here and there, but each big jump was spaced out enough you could absorb them as they came. Then, in 2025, new techniques for building these models unlocked a much faster pace of progress. Then it got even faster, and then faster again. Each new model wasn't just better than the last, it was better by a wider margin, and the time between new model releases was shorter. I was using AI more and more, going back and forth with it less and less, watching it handle things I used to think required my expertise. Then, on February 5th, 2 major AI labs released new models on the same day. GPT 5.3 Codex from OpenAI and Opus 4.6 from Anthropic, the makers of Claude, one of the main competitors to ChatGPT. And something clicked. Not like a light switch, more like the moment you realize the water has been rising around you and is now at your chest. I am no longer needed for the actual technical work of my job. I describe what I want built in plain English and it just appears. Not a rough draft I need to fix the finished thing. So he's saying effectively, like, my work, my technical work as a coder, as an engineer, it's been made largely irrelevant. I just tell this thing, like in plain English, the way you and I would talk, what I want it to do. And not only does it produce it, it used to sort of produce it in stages, is the way he describes it, where you have to like really be involved and like manage, babysit the process the whole way.
All right. So how do I know what version of ChatGPT this is? I guess I have to log in. Wonderful. Let's go ahead and log in on my throwaway account. I'm gonna put it over to the screen here in a second. I just I want to make sure I know what I'm looking at first before we dive into this. Great. So I will freely admit that I have looked at ChatGPT and used it before just to see what it was all about, and to see if it was something usable and helpful. And for the most part, it really isn't. It helps to generate ideas if you don't have any to begin with. But given that AI is now being used to basically destroy environments and ecosystems, like, I haven't touched it ever since, right? And I haven't touched ChatGPT for years at this point. Point being, I do know that ChatGPT allows you to, well, I guess upgrade for one. And then go between different iterations of ChatGPT, and it will even show you which version you're using. But I'm really not seeing where that is now. Okay. All right, so this is what I'm doing right now with chat. Okay, so apparently on the free version, right, free, you are using 5.2. Ah, damn it. Okay, now, I know enough programming to know that that is pretty simple. That is a straightforward code snippet. And I'm pretty sure ChatGPT 1 could have written this as well. So, So why did I just spend all that time writing that out? Because that is a complex command that I have experience writing in Unity, because I did in fact create an app with Unity for a game called Esoterra, where you're actually able to play the card game Esoterra, which I have brought up from time to time, right? Esoterra the game mat, and Esoterra the cards, right? I was able to create the game where you could import the cards and play with them, right? So I know for a fact how a Unity script should look. And I can tell you right now, a lot of ChatGPT's support will either A, give you good information, but wrong, or it'll just give you straight up wrong information. Now, considering it shouldn't be UI. Or no, it should be UI because it'll use TM Pro. So that's all correct. Chat bubble creator, public class, mono behavior, that is all correct. Void start, it starts the canvas, which it just creates a canvas. And that would in fact be the correct way of syntax for it. It does create a new game object. It does set the new object to the canvas as it's supposed to. It changes the background to a gray color, including alpha 2. So that this is all correct. That is and we can even do just to put it up there, Unity object color syntax. The fuck? So this is from Unity. There's materials, there's color, and it's value RGB and then 1 for fully transparent. Like that is all true, right? The text being creating a variable for that text. And then the text that is going to be put in there, which I have done many times. Hello world. Assigning the scale and all that fun stuff. Importing the asset, and then if else not found, because maybe your Unity didn't upload it. And it is telling you how to do that if you don't have it. So, granted, that's a simple script, so maybe that shouldn't be that impressive. But I'm not gonna lie, that seems to be a lot more comprehensive than code that I've seen in the past. It's very well written. Like, this is easy to follow. This follows clean code mechanics. Maybe it's a bit over the top because you're generating so it's not the most resource friendly because you're creating all these objects in real time. But this would work. See, we would have to spend a little bit more time in the AI to figure out exactly. If I asked it, so. Okay, this is getting a little creepy because so far this looks correct. That is also correct. That is the correct syntax. Access horizontal, vertical, right? Those are core elements of the Unity code. On collision, ground enemy. On collision, exit 2D and enter 2D. I mean, these are all correct. And it is creating literally all of the fucking points, all of the scripts. And telling you how to create the game object and what to attach it to. What's up, Razor? What are we searching for today? I tried that before, but usually coding doesn't really work. Well, we were watching a video where Anthropic exec admits AI can basically generate software on its own now. And I think a year ago, well, I say a year ago, but I mean sometime in 2024, I was trying to create an app. Regardless, I think I was just trying to play around in Unity. And I mean, it was a struggle to get the thing to even make like Excel spreadsheet formulas, right, that were accurate. Well, when I was coding on my own on Unity in 2025, I didn't use ChatGPT at all. I just learned from YouTube, right? And so that's why I'm very familiar with everything that this just said. This is exactly how a lot of my scripts use. Some of my scripts are a little bit, obviously, more robust than that. But ChatGPT 2 years ago could not have done that. It didn't. It was unable to do that. If you copied all those scripts and followed the directions that it gave you, started 2D, where did it say? You start a new scene, 2D project, add a player, ground, coin prefab, enemy prefab, and canvas with score text and text mesh pro. If you do these things and open up Unity and then copy and paste these scripts as C# scripts and attach them accordingly and hit run, you will have a functioning game. That's not nothing. Let me just put it that way. It's still not can be created separately. You must be a specialist in this field to know how to use the correct codes. To be clear, yes. I'm not arguing with that. If you wanted to make something more advanced than a simple game, like a simple side-scroller game like Mario, which is, I don't know if you guys picked up on that, I was basically designing Mario or even Sonic the Hedgehog, right? That's what I told it to create. And those games are obviously a bit more complex than 5 scripts, obviously because of the world design, other character design, other creature design, and all that, right? But, and the fact that there's different items. Point is, it is capable of, if not creating classes that interact with other classes in a family hierarchy, maybe, because I don't know, we're not going to mess around with that because every time we use ChatGPT, we kill a tree, right? So my main point was to see if ChatGPT could give you core architecture of an app frame, right? So if you want to do something simple and then expand on it, you literally could use ChatGPT as it currently stands to do that, which is on principle, like in terms of technology, fantastic. From the sense of innovation and advancement, outstanding, incredible, cannot be stressed enough how awesome that is. From an ethical, moral, and economic stance of the way it is being implemented and executed, violating people's intellectual property, decimating our environment, and ruining our communities, and driving up costs of electricity and clean water across states for just having one data center, never mind multiple data centers, it is reprehensible and equivalent to ecological and economic terrorism. The technology as it currently operates and how it is currently implemented is literally a death sentence. The technology as a concept and how far it has advanced and how useful it seems to be at this point in time, outstanding. Technically it works, but it won't be as efficient. I still prefer to be made by a specialist, and in the end you can achieve a somewhat perfect shape. No, don't get me wrong. I agree. The tool still needs people, or should still require people. Maybe there's a paid version, or maybe there is a ChatGPT 7.0 in the works that can literally create software, art, videos, and all this other stuff, which is why AI is being invested in, so that it can create deep fakes to give plausible deniability to the criminals that we have been talking about all day. All I'm saying is the technology is rapidly improving, and it is noticeably improving. But that doesn't change the fact that at this stage, the way it is being executed is detrimental to society. So we have 3 minutes left, and I got caught up in a lot of tangents today. There was some good news that I wanted to cover, which I guess it's not quite good news, but it's slightly better news. Yeah.
Congress is barreling towards a partial government shutdown in just 2 days. Negotiations appear to have stalled as Democrats demand reforms to immigration and customs enforcement
that will
bring ICE. And
so, independents nationwide are not happy with ICE, so that's good at least, I guess. No, that's not the good news. That's just more discussion. I'm sorry. So what about this then?
After yesterday's meeting with Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu, President Trump said, quote, tremendous progress is being made in Gaza. But even with the ceasefire in place between Israel and Hamas, there's still a dire situation on the ground. Millions of people.
Well, and the fact that, you know, there's just no ending on a good note, is there?
In Gaza still do not have access to enough food, water, and medical care. And that is where organizations like World Central Kitchen are helping. They've been feeding people in Gaza since 2023, and now they are serving 1 million meals a day there. So I want to bring in Chef Jose Andres. He's the founder and chief feeding officer of the World Central Kitchen. Good to see you as always, Chef.
Thank you for having me.
So give us a sense of how you were able to achieve this significant milestone. And I know that you say it's bittersweet, serving 1 million meals per day in war-torn Gaza.
It's bittersweet because obviously I've been talking to the team.
the framing. You know what? We're just going to allow the feel-good story to feel good. But it cannot be stressed enough that we're framing war-torn Gaza as if it isn't a one-sided conflict and a genocide and attempted ethnic cleansing.
Teams in Gaza by Zoom yesterday, today, and you can see their pride. But we need more. It's not enough food going in, even since the ceasefire under the leadership of President Trump. Things are getting a little bit better, but not good enough. Still is bombings here and there. Civilians keep dying, children, and we need more food. We need more medicines. We need reconstruction to start. Palestinians need more tents. It's been a brutal winter. It's been rains like they've never seen before. Therefore, whatever we are doing, it's okay, but we all need to be asking from the leadership of President Trump for this ceasefire and whatever peace deal is happening to be real and moving forward, because the people of Gaza cannot keep living under these conditions any longer. We are providing 1 million meals a day, Other organizations are doing their part, but we are still falling way short of what the people of Gaza need today.
Yes. Right. You gotta exactly. You gotta prove. Yes, I couldn't agree more. So it wasn't this Bad Bunny video.
You know, we have this new week, we have this new weather pattern. I got into the office today. My producers were asking me about it. My EP, me pregunto si tengo mucha lluvia in my forecast, meaning do I have a lot of rain in my forecast? Maybe not a lot for everybody, but I do have chances. In fact, hoy tengo a una, mañana otra, pero no hay boda. Meaning, today I have one, tomorrow I have another, but there's no wedding. Like, we're not married to the rain all week long, right? Does that make sense? A little bit? Does that sound like Bad Bunny? It's been so quiet for so long. Now suddenly I have a lot to talk about. I feel like a VIP. Hey, look at this. Normally we're looking at a live sunset view right here, and it's like, let's take a selfie. Say cheese. Not so much today, though. Lots of cloud cover. That's happening ahead of our approaching storm system.
Okay, that was adorable. I mean, this guy is definitely an embarrassing dad, for sure.
Raiding party!
Adam Kruger. But you know what? Oh, shit. Kai Telly. Thank you for the raid. Well, let's keep the party going a little bit. We've been covering a lot of politics, and we were trying to end up on a funny note, trying to bring it back down from when I was using our prop to discuss what's going on with ICE in our communities and our cities. But yeah, you know what? I would much rather this be the normal that we talk about. You know, local newscasters trying to be silly and funny after the Super Bowl. Like, I wish that was the news. I wish that was what was happening in society. I wish that was the geopolitical status of the world right now, that we could all just do funny haha things. But instead, it's Epstein. It's Gaza starving and suffering. Instead, it's ICE invading our communities and murdering people, right? It's just, and he's the whitest white guy. Like, seriously, right? We need more Adam Krugers in the world and significantly less Trump's, Bondies, and ICE. So, let's see. Why don't we... I need you to find another funny video, Anna, so we can get the raiding party to enjoy the stream a little bit here. Oh, this is
breaking news: a federal judge blocking the Department of...
For those of you who don't know, I served in the armed forces. This is my actual uniform. U.S. Air Force, right? And the point of showing that is Senator Kelly also served in the military, and did a video saying, hey, disobey unlawful orders because that's the oath you fucking swore. And then Trump and Vance and Hegseth tried to indict and charge those lawmakers for whatever reason, making them out to be criminals for highlighting the fact that military members can and should disobey unlawful orders. And as a veteran myself, I could not be more proud of these lawmakers who are veterans to highlight that point, because I would have been in that video as well, regardless of what letter was next to my name. Granted, I am running for Congress in Ohio's 15th District against Mike Carey in the Republican primary. But that notwithstanding, we need more people to speak out against the criminality that is this regime. So the fact that the judge and the grand jury took the side of the actual veterans is chef's kiss.
Of defense's attempt to punish Senator Mark Kelly, the judge issuing a scathing opinion today that concluded the DOD and Secretary Pete Hegseth trampled on Kelly's First Amendment rights. Congressional correspondent Jay O'Brien joins us now.
It didn't trample on his First Amendment rights. It trampled on the fact that our military shouldn't be invading other countries and murdering fishermen in international waters, and then being threatened and charged with criminal activity for pointing out that those actions are unlawful and that military members have a duty to disobey them. What? Even when the judges do the right thing, they do it wrong. What the hell?
For more, and we should remind folks about the illegal orders video that first went out and created all of this, Jay.
Exactly right, Kira. This is all tied back to that video that the president really thrust into the spotlight of a number of congressional Democrats who have backgrounds in the military or the intelligence community, speaking directly via a social media video to U.S. troops, saying that they can deny to follow illegal orders. They can decline to go along with an illegal order. That's all these members said in this video. President Trump, though, was irate by that video. He said it was tantamount to sedition, in his words, and that's what began the Trump administration. And
so, telling the military to disobey unlawful orders is sedition, but purging the government of anyone who disagrees with him, conspiring to protect pedophiles, murderers, rapists, and thieves, undermining every single constitutional amendment and article, invading our own country with his own secret police force, pardoning everyone who did commit sedition, and erasing our history isn't sedition? Okay. That's why people hate America. Over time, they continue to interfere in other countries and make you decide whether to be an enemy or an ally. Right. And it's kind of like this. Hey, we're America. Give us your stuff or you're our enemy. Like, what are countries supposed to do about that?
the Pentagon seeking to take action against these members of Congress. We had reporting earlier this week that a D.C. grand jury declined to indict these members in that video that you're seeing on criminal charges. And now today, a judge is smacking down the Pentagon's attempt to punish Senator Mark Kelly, who was a retired Navy captain. What the Pentagon was seeking to do was diminish Kelly's rank from captain to something lower, which would also impact his pension payments. And the judge flatly shot that down. And you said there, you quoted a little bit from the judge's memorandum here, saying that Senator Kelly's First Amendment rights were trampled on. I just want to read a little bit more here, because it is a startling rebuke of the administration. By the way, this judge is a George W. Bush appointee. He says, quote, "This court has all it needs to conclude that defendants, them being the Department of Defense, have trampled on Senator Kelly's First Amendment freedoms and threatened the constitutional liberties of millions of military retirees. After all, as Bob Dylan famously said, quote, you don't need a weatherman to know which way the wind blows. To say the least, our retired veterans deserve more respect from their government, and our Constitution demands they receive it." Stark words there from a Republican appointee to the Pentagon today, Kira.
And you know what? God bless America. Now, Kai Telly's group that joined the raid, I appreciate you coming down here. I appreciate the raid. Unfortunately, it is the end of our stream. I have to work tomorrow. So, I do hope you got to enjoy the little bit of Sam Ronan streams we just got done here. This screen, well, this part of it, we are streaming weekly, Tuesdays through Thursdays. On Tuesdays, we cover U.S. politics and news. Wednesdays, we cover international politics and news. And then Thursdays is a recap of everything. Throughout the streams, depending on the day, depending on the news, depending on the topic, I might lose my mind a little bit. And so you get to see me crash out, as the kids say. Other times, you get to hear me do a lot of nuance. You get to see me do my little soliloquies, right? Where I get to address the camera and talk whatever I talk about. I'm also actively running for U.S. House of Representatives in Ohio's 15th Congressional District as a Republican in the Republican primary. So we are actively campaigning, actively streaming, actively content creating, trying to resist this administration, this regime, and the corruption that they are doing by building this platform. So with all that being said, thank you for joining us. My name is Samuel Ronan. This has been Samuel Ronan Streams. As I just said, we stream Tuesday through Thursday. So for now, I wish you a great night. Have a great weekend. I will see you bright and early on Tuesday. And you're absolutely right, Razor. On that note, we will continue the resistance next week. See you then.